Screenagers, we're here. We're back. We did it. 100 episodes. So excited for this. I honestly can't believe that Duke allowed the show to stay around for us to get to 100 episodes. But we finally made it, and it's a big one. I'm super excited. I hope you're super excited. We have assembled an amazing team of some of the best movie minds in the business to talk about another incredibly essential movie. It's still Spooktober, so we got one more scary movie for y'all. If you're not watching us on YouTube, I did wear my Halloween themed shirt for the occasion. So if you're just listening, maybe pause and go check us out on YouTube so you can see the shirt. But joining me today, we have a great crew. We've got two Saw contributors, two of our favorites. Bob and Val are back. How are you guys doing?
Doing all right. Excited to talk
Doing
about
great.
the movie.
Yeah. And kind of concerned that it's so quickly approaching the end of October already.
Yeah.
Feels like it just started.
It's a little upsetting. But let's not, we don't have to talk about that yet. Also joining us though, very excited for these gents to be joining for their first venture into the wasteland. Joining us from the Watch If You Dare podcast, we've got Aaron and Derek. How are you guys doing? Welcome to the show.
What's up, y'all? Thank you for having us. We appreciate coming on and love spreading the Spooktober fear around. So we are very happy to be on to talk about one of our favorite movies.
Absolutely, and it is an honor to be on for the 100th episode. That is an accomplishment, guys. Like, congratulations!
Hell yeah!
We passed our 100th episode not too long ago too, and it is something to be proud about. So, yeah, well done. And it's, for your YouTube watchers, I am wearing
Halloween 3, yes!
Season of the Witch shirt. So, and
yeah,
my favorite Halloween.
I didn't realize.
Return to that. Wink, wink.
I didn't realize we were going to be on video until earlier, and I was already at work. So I am wearing my Trimmers shirt because that's just what I had on already.
Awesome.
Everyone's bringing their A game.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. Yeah, I mean, thank you guys so much for joining. Val recommended your show to me, and after checking you guys out, it's like 1000% want to have them on. Makes sense to have them on during October. Made sense that it lined up for us to be talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I don't think I've mentioned yet, but that's the movie that we're going to be talking about. If you couldn't tell from the title of the episode that you're looking at, if you just like blindly clicked this and started listening, but that's the film for today, episode 100. We're going to be talking some Texas Chainsaw Massacre to round out Spooktober. Before we get into that, since Derek and Aaron were so nice to join us today, like we said, from the Watch If You Dare podcast, before we get into the movie, why don't you gents tell us a little bit about your guys' show, what it is that you're doing over there, and why folks should be listening to you.
Cool. So just kind of in a nutshell, this was something that Derek and I honestly put together years ago because we just wanted to find something to do together, to hang out. We are old-time college buds who both like horror in general. We started from kind of that obvious premise of I am more the movie head. I went to film school. I worked in the industry a little bit. I'm a horror obsessive. I love genre trash. Derek, on the other hand, likes horror, but has always kind of been a little bit of a scaredy cat in terms of getting into movies. So it's been a lot of me pulling him into things and finding out what he likes, what he doesn't like, and talking through movies one episode at a time, one title at a time, and just talking about what works, what doesn't work, what we enjoy about the movie, socially relevant themes throughout, background on the movies, just kind of all the basic stuff, and just try to bring like our personal focus and background to it. And we love having guests on as well to kind of share that love and talk through recommendations, etc., and just celebrate horror.
Yeah, and it kind of started off really as that simple premise of I'm the coward, Aaron's the movie monster boy. And it is kind of funny because, like, he's right. I've always been into horror. I would say even to this day, I'm still more of a video game person than I am a movie person, and especially with horror video games. And I think there was always a degree, like, reason why I could get through horror games is there's a degree of control, whereas with a movie, you're just watching what they're showing you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And so this was a good excuse to not only increase my knowledge of movies, but also kind of overcome my fears. Now where we're at, 100 plus episodes later, it's now more turning into, like, there is still that dynamic, but it's now more turning into a lot of these movies are first time watches for me. And these are some big heavy hitter movies too. Like at the time of this recording, we just put out our Carrie episode, and that's I'm realizing, like, I know what Carrie's about. I absorbed it through cultural osmosis over the years just because of everything else spoofing it and all that, and all the
Right.
references. It was my first time actually sitting down start to finish watching Carrie, so I could add that level of, like, okay, here's my thoughts as a complete newbie when it comes to this movie. It always trips me up, for instance, that Brian De Palma directed that, because I always associate him with, like, true crime type movies. And so with him being the person who directed Carrie, like, stuff like that is what fascinates me about the genre.
Hell yeah. I love that. Love everything that you guys are saying. I have, had the pleasure of listening to a couple episodes and can totally vouch for the show. It's a ton of fun. You guys obviously have a great back and forth with each other. It's awesome when you bring guests on. Anything that's just like celebrating movies, we're going to be down for, because isn't that the point? Isn't that why all of us started
Absolutely
writing and talking about movies and wanting to work
Yeah.
in and around them, so the fact that you guys are doing it, like, specifically with the horror genre is cool. And Derek, I was kind of on the same boat with you, or in the same boat as you. I started off, I'm not the biggest horror fan, so watching those movies for the first time over time has been fun. I think Val is kind of in the same boat as us too.
Wait, what? Oh, well, I'm kind of, yes.
Were you like a bit of a latecomer to the genre?
was. Like, the first horror movie I watched, and I may have said this to you guys already, but it was Grave Encounters, which is a found footage horror.
You
I
Sure,
actually
yeah.
really liked it, but it was kind of being thrown into the deep end in terms of, like, jump scares, and, like, it was not a tame horror movie. It was, like, pretty average. But yeah, from there I just kept watching more, and I mean, yeah, now I've seen, like, the Cronenberg stuff and whatever, which I think is probably much rougher to watch than some of that. So yeah.
Now you're all the way in. You're
now
fully in.
now nothing really bothers me anymore. Like,
You're challenging Bob from changing it from Bobtober to Valtober.
Yeah.
No.
I agree.
No, I'm
I
telling
agree.
you, I'm not trying to do that. Especially because I haven't even watched that much horror this month. Though I was challenged by Duke to watch more of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and
Hell
I
yeah.
only watched like 2. But honestly, I really liked the second one, which I did
The
not
second
expect.
one's good.
Okay, I was
just
about to
thought it
ask
was a ton of
which
fun.
2 did you watch? So it
1
sounds
and
like you watched the
2.
first and second.
And
Okay.
because the only other one I had seen was like the crappy remake that came out when I was in
Yeah.
college, and I watched it at like 2 a.m. on a Christian college campus. Just not an ideal
Oh wow.
viewing experience.
Wow.
So still trying to dive into more of those, but probably gonna miss the ranking as they're
If you can
tomorrow.
only watch 2 more,
Yeah.
just watch 3 and 7.
Okay. All right. I don't know if I'll be
I would
able to watch
agree.
Grey Work.
Yes.
All right, before we get too deep into the Nightmare on Elm Street series, we're gonna bring it back to the movie of the day, because there's a lot to talk about with this movie, and I think this is the most amount of people that we've had on one single episode. So, obviously we want to get to everyone's thoughts and reactions to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I think if y'all are ready, I think we can just dive right in. We've got the background from the Watch If You Dare fellas. We know Bob, we know Val. Hopefully folks at this point know me. So I think we can jump in. We were going to maybe talk about chili, but it just seems like we don't have enough time, unfortunately.
Change
That's
chili recipes
talk
later.
for the second movie.
Yeah, we'll save
for
that
the
for the
second.
second one.
It really
Yeah.
is, though.
I assume there is some sort of human meat being used for the chili in the second one, although I don't think that the second one is in the canon, unfortunately. So we'll have to
No.
find another venue
Yeah.
at the Wasteland to talk about that. But in order for us to dive in to this particular movie, there's so many different places that we could start, but I think because the viewing experience for this movie is so intense for so many people, I want to first get a sense of both the first and last time that everyone watched this movie. And I think I want to start with Val, and then
Oh,
everyone just sort of jump in as as we're going along with first and last time that you guys watched this.
yeah. My first time was very recently. Because I actually, you had asked if I wanted to be on the episode, and I was like, well, that's perfect because I'm gonna go see it in theaters. And I went and saw it in theaters with Aaron and his wife. Um, and it was literally because we saw a different movie in theaters, and the trailer
Right.
it came up, and I was like, "Oh, I've never seen that." And they both just turned to me and were like, "We have to go. Like,
Yeah.
you have to see it."
Exactly.
And I'm glad we went to see it in theaters in 4K because that was awesome. But like this movie, in my opinion, I think when I saw it, I was like, this is a perfect movie. Like, really, there's very few movies I would say that about, but I think everything is just done so very well to create the experience it creates. We'll get too into it, but the last time I watched it was today, during a slow day at work. Sorry to my bosses. And it was still very visceral and heavy just watching it, like, while I was doing customer service work. So it's still,
Wow. I can't believe that you didn't watch this until what, like a month ago? You
yeah,
hadn't seen this until a month
That's
ago.
crazy.
And that was your
yeah.
Yeah.
that's an awesome like first time viewing experience
It
for
was. It was an
this
awesome
particular
first
movie.
time experience. The Alamo
Was it a
Draft.
packed theater?
It was. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a good amount of people there.
It was kind of wild because the age range was all over the place. It was like everybody from every type of background you could think of was there. I especially felt a little bit weird because I was sitting next to a literal child, like an 8-year-old that was there with his, I guess, either dad and grandfather or uncle and
I
grandfather.
remember you telling me this. It's like those old news segments where they interview families coming out of Alien, and
Right.
like little kids with their parents.
Oh no.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was very interesting, but it was a packed crowd, and it was great seeing it with you, Val, because knowing that like you and your husband were seeing it for the first time, that's always a special thing to me as somebody who's like a diehard movie person. Getting to see something like that for the first time with somebody else that hasn't ever seen it is, I love those kinds of experiences. And both of you were like kind of awestruck afterward. It was fun
Yeah,
talking to you because you were a little bit shell shocked.
yeah,
I
which
mean,
I think is a normal experience after that movie. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was a lot of fun seeing it that way.
that's a totally fair way to walk out of this movie. Aaron, was that the last time that you had seen this? And then what was the first time that you saw this?
So that was actually the most recent time I watched it. I watched this not too long ago. Second Sight put out a really, really great 4K big, nice set of this. And that was the first time watching that particular restoration, which looks incredible. By comparison, I guess the first time I saw this was when I was maybe 10, 11, somewhere in there. I
Way
had a
too young.
local movie store. Oh,
Far
for
too
sure.
young.
Yeah. The local VHS rental store near us. Shout out to Home Movies in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. There was a guy there named Markle, R.I.P., who was your typical video store guy wearing his denim battle vest and his crazy fried hair and glasses, who would just rent me whatever the hell I wanted as I walked there after school. And it was just always like, don't tell your mom, kid. And I took home Texas Chainsaw, and it was exactly the experience that I needed to have in the late 90s watching it on a crappy little like 9-12-inch CRT TV with a built-in VHS that was broken, so I had to use an actual VHS player hooked up to the TV to watch it, and it felt like watching a snuff film. It felt like I was watching something truly dangerous that I was not supposed to be watching because I was 9-10. I wasn't supposed to be watching it. And it really, really like screwed with my head. Can we say F words on this podcast? Are we? How
We try
clean
to
do we
say
need to keep this? I guess
somewhat family friendly, but the occasional F word, if needed, is
I'll
acceptable.
Aaron,
censor
they're
myself.
they're way more classy on our show.
Exactly.
Listen to
I have
through
said
a
the
lot.
F word on this podcast. It's
As have
okay.
I.
We say F words, yeah.
Well, I will keep my like customer facing, as Val was joking about earlier, voice on. Yeah, it really did mess with me, and there
Say
was
it.
something about
Say what you want to
saying
say.
really did fuck with my head. There was something about seeing it with that layer of disassociation where it actually increases the like verisimilitude and like the actual real feeling to it, and it messed me up for a long time. And it wasn't until I was in like high school that I saw the second movie, and like we were joking about earlier, it's a complete turnaround from the first one tonally. So it's one of those things where I think this movie completely shook me at exactly the right age where it impacted how I viewed all other horror movies from this point on. And that's why it's still like my number one ultimately. If I have to just completely put a dot on what my favorite horror movie is, I will probably go to Texas Chainsaw every time.
And you told me
yeah.
it's like your top 5, like in your top 3 or even 5 movies.
That list changes on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
But at any given time, it could easily be in there with Jaws and a handful of other things. Yeah.
Which is totally understandable, especially if you watch it at such a young age where you're still being formed and informed for like what your taste is going to be for the rest of your life. Like, I could not imagine watching this movie at the age of 10 or 11 or 9 when you may have seen it.
No.
So I'm excited to pick your brain a little bit more about sort of like how your viewings have sort of like changed your reading of the movie over the years, because I'm sure the way that you saw it, last month is going to be slightly different from the, the takeaways that you had when you were 10 years old. But very excited for that. Derek, what about you?
The first time I had seen it, this was really showing like our generation specifically. I'm probably speaking more towards like the type of like sort of latchkey kids still before that stopped being a thing. But then, but we also had the rental stores, and we'd go off to the rental like without parents. And if there was somebody working there, like at the Blockbuster, who A, was either your friend or B, didn't care, they would allow you to rent like radar movies even if you're 13. So I'd experience with that. This was one of those weird situations where a kid who I was friends with at school, and this was when we were like 15, 16 in high school, but I never really hung out too much outside of school, like just on a whim invited me over to his dad's house to like sleep over one night, and we'd watch movies and stuff. And he lived kind of close to where my parents used to live, and there was a Blockbuster down the street from us. So we went to Blockbuster. His dad, like, I recently divorced, so I think he was kind of also being cool dad and was letting us pick whatever we wanted. And we did a double feature of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the original Nightmare on Elm Street. And like we rented both those movies. We like picked up Popeyes or something, went back to their house, and we actually watched Texas Chainsaw first. And we were just quiet. Like we were kind of joking here and there in the beginning, but then when the first real like hammer to the head, pulled into the back, shut the door happened, we kind of just quiet. And I think his dad really regretted the decisions that like he let us do after the movie ended. And he's like, "Are you boys sure you want to watch Nightmare on Elm Street?" And we're like, yeah. And we watched Nightmare on Elm Street, and like at the time, if you would ask me, I'd be like, oh, I had way more fun with Nightmare on Elm Street. I thought it was scarier. But I, looking back on it, I think I was just so shell shocked about what I had actually watched. And I think I was like 15, 16. I wasn't quite realizing just how important and this movie is and how much it held up at the time. Since then, I've watched it 7 or 8 times. The last time I watched it was about 2 days ago, and we had mentioned this off recording when we were just kind of introducing ourselves. But I I think it's easier and I have more fun watching Texas Chainsaw 2. However, it is undeniable that the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the best. And it is undeniable that's not only one of the best, but one of the best horror movies just ever made. It is. There are these linchpins in movie history that like help build a genre, and I think Texas Chainsaw started the ball rolling. Halloween took it and like put it into the end zone to set up like the modern day slasher. But to even call Texas Chainsaw just a slasher is not doing it justice. It's something more than just a slasher. To take nothing away from Halloween, because I think that's also a
Yeah.
masterpiece in its own right.
Yeah. The with the sequel, I guess we'll talk about it later, but like the idea that like this is one of those movies where it hits so hard and then we get all of these like sort of like copycats and sequels and like a whole franchise out of it, and it's like, oh, you guys totally learned all of the wrong lessons from like what makes that original movie so great. Yeah.
And I don't know if you're going to bring this up later on, so I'm sorry if I'm stepping on your toes, but one of the things I find fascinating, one of the things I tried to focus on this watch specifically, was that Tobe Hooper always said that the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a black comedy movie, and that no one got the humor, and that's why part of the reasons why he made 2 the way he made 2, which I find fascinating. And then real quick, just kind of like just shout out to our own show. I'm trying not to blow too much smoke up our butts, but
Do it.
our very first episode was on the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then our 100th episode was the second movie. So,
which that is not an endorsement for anybody to go back and listen to that first episode, because that was clearly when we were figuring out what our format was. We didn't know what we were doing. Don't go back and listen to that episode.
It's a bad episode. But
go listen to our 100th episode on Texas Chainsaw 2 with Patrick Bromley from F This Movie. That's a fun episode.
But I bring that up to give you guys just how big of a impact that movie had on both of us. But like when we put together our show, Aaron was dead set like our first episode needs to be on Texas Chainsaw, and I had no issues with that.
Okay, so that brings us to Bob. And Bob, I understand for your first viewing there is maybe a bit of a story behind it, and we know that when Bob has a story for us, it usually hits. It's gonna be I'm gonna plug it again. If you haven't listened to our Stand By Me episode or seen the separate video about Bob and the bear, go watch that now, because we love Bob's stories. So Bob, what was your first experience around the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Okay, so this is not going to be as good as the bear story, but so my experience with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre starts long before I saw the movie, and it starts when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and I went to visit my friend, my cousin actually, Danny Snowman. Me and my brother we went camping, which at that point in time, camping for us as kids was. His dad took the metal camper thing off the back of his pickup truck and put it in the yard.
Hell yeah.
We got our sleeping bags underneath that. And they turned off the outside lights, and we were like in the woods. And we started to tell each other scary stories. And I don't remember anything about what I told or what my brother Scott told, but Danny started telling us this story about this family in Texas that would like waylay, hitchhikers and stuff, and kill them, and then chop them up and like put them in sausages and sell them. And I was like, this is a lie. This isn't true. And he's like, no, it's true. And it was called the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And like,
Incredible.
Like there was this pause where we were all like that, because that phrase, just those words together was scary. And then because it was Maine in the fall, in the distance, a chainsaw started up.
Hell yeah.
Oh my God.
And I still get chills from thinking about this. I don't even remember getting from the yard into the house. It was like suddenly we were in the house and we slept with the light on. And so for me, that was a formative, like, oh my God, this movie, like this can't be real. And so for the longest time, even as I got into horror, I was like, I can't watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It became this huge thing in my mind. It was too scary. It was too much.
Yeah.
It was too raw and real. And to the point where when my friends in high school figured out that I hadn't seen it, and like I was a hardened horror connoisseur at the time. I'd seen Cannibal Holocaust and whatever, I wasn't scared of anything except for this freaking movie. So they forced me to sit down and watch the movie. And I don't even remember the whole movie. I only remembered parts of it. Like I remember the hitchhiker cutting his thumb. I remembered, the guy in the wheelchair going down the hill. And I remember Leatherface pretty well, but I like had a panic attack, full on panic attack
Oh
while I was
no.
watching this movie.
Wow.
So I don't remember much of that night. So I don't think that counts as true watching the movie.
Yeah.
I didn't watch it again until 2014
Wow.
when Marilyn Burns passed away. And I was like, I need to get over this and actually go watch the movie. And when I was going to go watching it, I told my wife, well, I guess I'm going to go watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was always going down to the basement, like, guess I'll never see you again. Sort of thing to it. And it was like a completely different experience. Like it was revealed to be this amazing cinematic masterpiece, a really good horror movie and extremely well done. And I was like flabbergasted that I'd let myself kind of get so worked up about it for so long. So yeah, I think the last time that I saw it was actually the third time that I saw it, the same release that you guys saw in the theater. I saw it at a local place here with 8 other people, including one woman behind me that was like, I thought this was a zombie movie. Like, you are in the wrong place.
How did that happen? Yeah.
So that's my experience with Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
There is maybe an argument that someone can call this a zombie movie. I don't know that I will, or that we need to get into what that argument would be. But honestly, loved hearing all of those stories, all of these different experiences, and sort of like where everyone is coming to this movie from. If anyone has not read it, I would recommend checking out Bob's review of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre on the website, where he goes into some of these stories a little bit. And I think, Bob, you talk about in that how after your like 2014 watch, you have this like new appreciation for this movie, which is such a weird movie to appreciate, because I think we are all in agreement that this is one of the more terrifying film experiences that anyone could have. And in order to like dive a little bit deeper into the movie, I want to do a quick exercise. I feel like I'm doing like a third grade teacher thing. This isn't something that we've typically done on the show, but I was thinking about, like, while watching this movie, there's so many different things that we can talk about, but all of these like different adjectives were like running through my head about like how I would describe this movie. So I was wondering, what some of those words would be that you guys would all throw out to describe this movie. I'll start with filthy and grimy. Like, those were the two things that I was thinking of the most, but I want to hear, what you guys would throw out for this.
I'll start off. Hot, sweaty, smelly, and then consistent and undeniable. And the reason why I throw those last two out is this whole movie is terrifying. Like, once you meet the Sawyer clan, and even before then with like the hitchhiker, and even just the opening credits with like the decaying thing that was built in the cemetery that also is looking goopy and drippy in the Texas heat, which is why I use like the smelly and all that. But those last two I bring up because there are two jump scares in this movie that they're one of those jumps. There's those type of jump scares like you see with Doc Halloran and what happens to him in The Shining, like when comes around the pillar screaming, where I can watch it 100 times and it gets me every single time. And the two in this are the one where like he opens the freezer and then it involves the body like twitching, and then the flashlight, quiet, suddenly like roaring a chainsaw and
Oh,
in your
that one's
face.
bad.
Like
Oh,
those two, many
Yeah.
times as I've watched this movie, and those two scenes specifically, they get me every time. I think I know when it's going to happen, and the way Hooper just planned it out, mapped it out, and the timing of them makes it unpredictable every single time. But it's also consistent because it consistently scares the crap out of me every time I watch it. Yeah.
no, in that same vein, I was actually going to say unrelenting because once this movie gets going, it's
Oh,
just merciless until it ends. Like Marilyn Burns screaming is just, it gets into your head, it gets under your skin. It just like you're almost a little bit like make it stop. And there's only like a few movies that have made me feel that way, but I think it is just a testament to the atmosphere that it creates, particularly in its second half.
I would probably say degeneracy.
Mm.
It's one of those
Good
movies
one.
that so much of what's going on here is the product of isolation, and it's the product of just complete corruption and depravity. And this is the kind of stuff that happens when you're driving down the highway in a rural area and you see that house that's kind of off in the distance and the yard is overgrown and there's junk everywhere, and you just kind of wonder as you're driving by, like, what goes on there? What happens
Mm.
there? Like, who
And
lives there? What do they
there's so many of
do?
those places across America when you're road tripping. So,
Especially across the South where Derek and I grew
yeah,
up.
absolutely.
I mean, he grew up in the New Orleans area, and I grew up in South Mississippi, just outside of New Orleans. And so there are lots of places that you drive by like that where you just have to wonder, like, what is happening there? Who are those people? And this movie is kind of a perfect example of what happens when you have that level of isolation that is brought on by economics. I mean, that's a whole major factor in this movie, is that they talk about the slaughterhouse, which is the only industry in this area going under, and these people being largely put out of work and just kind of, what do you do now? You're just kind of floating. Um, Not having a mommy around. And that is something that we do kind of see in this weird family dynamic that's going on that is all men. And it's very interesting that Leatherface at one point does go full drag and is wearing the mommy clothes. There
And talking
is
in like a lighter, like woo, 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 woo type
right.
voice.
Yeah.
That
There's
cracked me
something
up this time
about
around. I got that Toby Hooper like
Yeah.
humor this time around.
there's something about trying to like build a facsimile and an impression of what the like American nuclear family TM looks like, but in these situations where you just there's no possibility for that normalcy in air quotes. And this is just people completely gone to seed. Everything about it is corruption, it's decay, it's mental rot. And that is kind of where so much of the actual scariness for this movie kind of sets in, because that's a real thing. You know, like, obviously this movie is kind of based on a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And it's kind of in the pop culture right now, obviously, that there was the Ed Gein, Ryan Murphy show that's on Netflix right now that everybody's kind of talking about because it's apparently buck wild. I haven't watched it. But that story, the Ed Gein story, is a major influence for Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah.
And that is also an example of somebody who just goes full batshit through isolation and just not having a support system. And that's, again, that's a real life thing that is terrifying because that happens. And this movie perfectly captures that atmosphere and what it's like to be trapped in the midst of all of that. And that is kind of the scariest thing to me. So I mean, those are my adjectives: depravity, degeneracy, decay, etc. All the D words, apparently.
All the D's. I love that. I was thinking of a lot of the G's. Okay, all three of you guys brought up stuff that I want to circle back to, but Bob, what do you have for us?
I'll keep it simple. The two words that come to the mind most for me is grotesque. Just the, if you've got a person's face as a lamp over the table, it's
Yeah.
grotesque. I'm sorry. Cool, kind of, but grotesque. And then the other is nihilism.
Yeah.
Because I have a feeling
Yeah.
like this is a movie whose point of view is not positive about humanity. It's coming from a time period where there was pretty dark times, and I'm sure we'll go into that. But I think of it as the point of view of someone whose opinion of humanity is, as Toby Hooper said, it's a movie about meat,
Yeah.
and everybody in it is just meat
It's just
from
me.
their point of view. So
Yeah, there's a lot going on there too. I did not realize until I was doing like a little bit of prep for this that he's a vegetarian, and just like seeing that, I was like, oh yeah, everything going on in this movie makes so much more sense when you add that context. So okay, like I said, or like I said, all of you guys brought up things that I do want to circle back to. A lot of like themes and topics about like the context that this movie was made in, the time that it was made in, all of that good stuff. But before we get into that, the next question that I need everyone to answer, and I know that this is a question that you guys will ask on the Watch If You Dare show: how scary is this mother trucker? I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna throw my hat into the ring with the answer: very, and
I
leave it
agree.
at that.
I don't think I can reasonably answer that question given my history with it, but I will also say very.
Yeah, I'll say it's up there. I mean, I think that it kind of lulls you into a false sense of security a little bit in like cuz it doesn't really get very scary until like pretty far into the movie. I was looking at the runtime and I was like, "Oh, there's like 35 minutes left." But those 35 minutes are rough. Like
Yeah.
really like I was saying to you, Raph, cuz we were talking a little bit about this in the witch episode, that like or I think it might have been after recording, that like if you can handle this movie, I think you can handle most horror,
Yeah.
truly. 'Cause it's so intense and
Ye-
it just there's so much about it that scares me in different ways.
Before we get to Aaron and Derek, Val, I think we were talking after we spoke about The Witch, and I was like, yeah, The Witch and something like Texas Chainsaw, like the first time that I saw it, I didn't find it to be all that scary. And this go around, I was maybe not scared the entire time, but I was extremely unsettled. I did not feel good watching this movie at any point. And like before the real scares actually start, like from the get-go, I was just like, I don't have a good feeling right now. None of this feels pleasant. This is not a
Yeah,
pleasant viewing experience,
definitely.
even though there is a lot in the movie that you can like take away from it in terms of like the artistic value and things like that, but it still doesn't feel good. But yeah, Derek and Aaron, what do you guys think in terms of like how scary
Um,
this one
it
is?
yeah, it's hard for me to actually contextualize this because watching it this time, and I will agree with you, Val, that the last 30 minutes of like unrelenting screaming and them taunting her at the dinner table and all of that, that's the most horrifying part of this movie, and that is up there as like some of the scariest stuff you can watch in movies. Um, but because I told y'all I was focusing so much on like where's the humor in this that Toby thought he had in it, and like the idea that he's vegetarian and doing all this, and I might be showing my freak side a little bit. I laughed out loud at some stuff, like, and part of it too is like inside jokes between Aaron and I, because like Aaron and I are constantly quoting The Hitchhiker, $5, it's a good picture, and we always like do that to each other. So that part was like cracking me up.
Done.
Like,
Like,
what your brother did to the door.
That made me laugh. Even just like Leatherface running around in drag, like trying to do like what Kenny's voice used to be like in South Park. Like all of that was cracking me up. But again, go back to what I said earlier. Even the part where like she finds the tooth and like shows it to the guy right before he's about to get offed, like in the most like shocking way possible. Like all that, like I saw the dark humor in it that he was going for. But going back to like what I said earlier, like then on top of all of that, there is this whole idea of just American wasteland. Going to the name of y'all show, it is an American wasteland. These are like, this is the death of the hippie era, and we're seeing it literally on screen with this group of young adults. It is the death of the hippie era colliding with the rundown areas of like broken America, and like what that looks like when those two things clash. So that's all horrifying. And those two undeniable jump scares, like it's the hospital scene in Exorcist 3. It's Doc Halloran getting the axe in The Shining. It's Leatherface in your face suddenly in the like pitch black darkness to the rev of a chainsaw.
Oh God. Watching that in the theater during that moment, which I've seen dozens of times, I just leaned forward and looked to my left at Val and watched her and her husband and watched both of them fucking jump about 10 feet in the air. And I was grinning like the Cheshire Cat. Just the Jack Nicholson meme from The Departed. Just grinning the entire time. It was fantastic.
And I will say, like, even after this watch, I had to like take a deep breath, like, okay, like we got through that. Like that is intense. And like this is I'm somebody who, realistic horror, I love it. Like, you know, I even recently rewatched John Carpenter's Halloween, and I love that whole movie. And that's not what scares me, but what scares me is more like J horror, like ghosts. That like Japanese type of horror, which is hilarious because I'm obsessed with Japanese horror and video games. But
and that's where a lot of the differences between you and I that we talk about on the show a good bit, because for me that is why this to me is one of the all-time scariest movies, because like I was talking about earlier, this could happen. This is not supernatural. There is no curse. There is no monster. There is no, alternate dimension, whatever. There is nothing supernatural about this. This is a giant sweaty dude with a chainsaw running after you in the dark. And that is the most primal, terrifying thing you can imagine. And for me, that is 100% the kind of thing that gets under my skin. Derek, on the other hand, like, again, there's got to be like a creepy girl making clicking noises on the ceiling. Because otherwise he's like, oh, this hitchhiker that you picked up that's cutting his hand open and smearing blood everywhere. No,
hilarious.
Yeah.
Like I'm the type of guy who's like, oh, I could get kidnapped and like cannibalized. Whatever. Oh no, I have to go down the hallway and turn off the light. I think the ring girl is going to come and get me.
I think everybody has that though, like that specific kind of horror that's just going to like mess with you really hard.
But going back to my final point with all this is like, despite all that, despite my sensibilities on like what terrifies me, this movie still kind of overcomes that. It's just transcendent and it's horror that even me, by the end of the movie, I'm like, that was intense. Let's take a deep breath. What a ride.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, before we move on to the next thing, I don't know why we haven't mentioned it yet, but again, if you're not watching us on YouTube, Aaron is so unbelievably seasonal right now with his lighting. It's It's insane. Maybe not Texas Chainsaw specific, but just in terms of like giving us a Halloween
Bava.
vibe.
Yeah,
Yes.
going for some Bava
There we go.
Argento vibes. There we go.
I don't know. It does kind of look like the lighting that's in the radio station in Texas Chainsaw 2.
Yeah, a little
Like
bit.
when Chop Top shows up.
It always comes back to Texas Chainsaw 2.
Yeah, sorry.
Next
All-
movie in the canon, maybe.
All
Oh,
roads
my
lead
God.
back there.
Please.
Oh, and I have to ask you this, Raph, because it occurred to me before we started. I'm like, so how many Kubrick movies are in the canon? Is it just 2001 and The Shining?
2001. Honestly, no, Dr. Strangelove.
Okay, Doctor Strange. So he does manage to beat Toby Hooper by one.
By
Yeah.
one.
Oh.
So, yeah, I mean, Bob, like, you know, thinking back to our Poltergeist conversation, and if you
Yeah.
haven't heard our Poltergeist episode, definitely go listen to that once you're done listening to this, because it is a good time. But thinking about like the through line of those two movies and like what Hooper is doing as a director, it does make a lot of sense that if you give the dude who made the Texas Chainsaw Massacre the budget of a Steven Spielberg movie and tell him to make it PG, that Poltergeist is what we're going to get, because the two are exploring very similar things. Right?
Yeah.
Like we were talking about how Poltergeist is about boomers as they enter like adulthood in the 80s. This movie is kind of about boomers leaving like that hippie phase and being confronted with everything that's going on in the States in the 70s. You guys were talking about like the death of the hippie era. We were also talking about what this movie is saying about the family unit, which I think is like one of the more interesting things that's going on within this movie. While it is like terrifying you, it also has a lot to say about the American family unit, as well as Americans who have been left behind for whatever reason, mostly for economic reasons. And like, it's about who's being left behind and how it's affecting them and like the horrors of all of that. So now is our favorite time of the episode where we get to talk about all of the societal commentary that's going on with this particular movie. So let's not talk about chainsaws or screams and all that stuff. Let's just talk about America, baby. What is the context, the American
Oh my
context that
God.
this movie exists within?
I mean,
Yeah, it's the end of innocence, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
we had just come through a ridiculous, not ridiculous, but an incredible amount of upheaval, both societally, culturally. I can't pronounce anything today, and
We're all scared of
everything
Leatherface.
started to seem like it was falling apart. I mean, this was 1973 was the oil embargo. So
Right.
gas prices went through the roof, and there were like lines around the block. People were running out of gas. In the movie, when they stopped to get gas, there isn't any. And that was a thing that happened to a lot of people during that. It was also a huge recession, the biggest economic downturn since the Great Depression happened, 1973. It felt apocalyptic, I think, for a lot of people. They'd also had, I can't remember if it was earlier that year or later the year before, but they'd had like a huge sunstorm that caused bunches of electrical outages all around the world as well, which is one of the reasons why they have it had to be 1973 because that was when they were making this. But so that's one of the reasons why they have like even the sun seems sick,
Yeah.
in this world.
Yeah.
that they're showing us.
Like that
And-
guy at the gas station just staring up at it like the whole
Yeah.
time in a trance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's the context in which this film gets started. It's like the apocalypse has already happened and we don't know it yet, but we're living in the wasteland that comes afterwards is what it feels like.
Yeah.
The
This is
wasteland
also at the tail end of Vietnam.
mhm.
And there's a lot of that going on here as well. I mean,
Yeah.
we talk about, we use the term meat grinder quite often in the context of warfare. And, there's a lot of that clearly on Toby Hooper's mind here. We are also looking at, we mentioned the economic stuff. And we're starting to see a lot of that happen again. You know, obviously these are things that go in cycles every so many years with our economy, and it affects different parts of the economy in different ways. But this is one of those times where towns that have that single industry that props up an entire community, once that collapses for whatever reason, things just seem to go to hell one way or another. And you have that domino effect that happens. And in desperation, you have a lot of bad stuff that happens, right? And so this, I agree. This is like the after effects of the initial, you know, everything fell apart apocalypse. Now we're living in the aftermath of it because we've had enough time for the decay to fully set in. And this is also just such a movie about boredom. And this is one of those things that I think Derek and I can bring our own unique background to, because we both grew up again in the Gulf South. Hurricanes. I know this sounds like a tangent, but guess what? Hurricanes affect Texas too. Hurricanes are just a fact of life down there. And when you're a kid, you kind of look forward to it a little bit because it's during the summer.
Totally. Yep.
Sometimes they interfere with school. You know, Katrina happened when we were in our. I was a senior.
I was a junior. Yeah.
Yeah, and we were out of school for like a month.
Yep.
It's one of those things that it's kind of a weird adventure because you feel like you're living in a mini apocalypse, but it's one that you can just like walk away from in a week. And you're kind of living in that weird bored space where once you run out of whatever booze you've managed to sneak and you can't really drive anywhere because the roads are closed and there's no electricity and there's no lights in the evening. So you're just
the
kind of...
Southeast is very hot.
It's very hot. So everybody has their windows open. Everybody is just sweaty. You're wearing fewer and fewer pieces of clothing to just try and stay cool. But that boredom kicks in and you start to kind of go nuts. And that is something that you see in every facet of this movie. Why are these teens going to the middle of nowhere to this house to go see their grandparents? Like, why? What else is going on that's just kind of the thing to do, I guess? What is going on with all the other people in this town? The scene at the beginning in the cemetery.
One guy in the tire just drinking.
Right.
Yeah.
There's just this level of boredom that's happening where these people just have nothing better to do. And that is just totally this weird side effect of once you no longer have an economic purpose, once you no longer have a job, once you no longer are doing something in air quotes with your time, there's kind of sort of that weird lunacy that sets in. And, you know, that is one of those things that I'm curious to see what the next couple of years look like, because we're already seeing so many reports of like cattle ranchers are shutting down their operations left and right because of the tariff situation right now. Various like soybean farmers, again, to go back to like Mississippi and what my background is, just soybean farmers all over the Southeast, and they're being put out of jobs right now. You know, there's this kind of economic stagnation and decline that's happening that is just going to lead to this type of boredom and degeneracy. And you know, that's
we'll
something
get some
that's
good movies out of it.
Right. I mean, that's something that we always joke about, that
yay, more horror.
Yeah.
in times of real world stress, you then see in the next 2 or 3 years that anxiety being expressed in art. And that is something that, you know, you'll see those interesting waves and ripples depending on what's happening in the culture. You know, obviously in the wake of COVID, we got a million movies about isolation and people being stuck inside and viruses and just tons of zombie movies and everything else, right? Like that's just kind of how these waves happen. But yeah, there is something to be said about, you know, the state of America at the time and just how everybody was void of some type of purpose, and everybody is just kind of wandering around looking for something, anything to just fill the time even, and that leads to this level of just kind of lunacy.
Yeah. So I mean, to bring it back to our Poltergeist episode, we were talking about like what the updated version of that movie would be if it were made in 2025. And the obvious thing is like, okay, instead of kids being, you know, lured by ghosts into TVs, it would be through their tablets or whatever. And then you think about like what the obvious
Roblox,
version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 2025 would look like, and like they're forced into that into like that isolation and that loss of purpose because of automation, right? Like they talk about how they don't like
That's what I was gonna
the
bring
guns that are. Yeah, Derek, what do you have for us about
I was just
about that?
what you were just about to say. Like that whole, as much as I love the hitchhiker scene because it's funny to me and Aaron and it's an inside joke, that part is a lot of what is on Toby Hooper's mind in this movie. Him just going on the tirade about the gun and how he implies that his brother lost the job to the gun, and then also going back to something even Aaron tapped into earlier about the primal idea of like bashing in a cow's head in for your food. Like there's something caveman in it and the way he expresses that. But like going back to more the societal outlook, it's a criticism of capitalism, of automation. And in a perfect world, automation would allow us to live better lives where we can focus on creating more art. But in a capitalistic society, it's like, no, you're not getting paid anything, and this machine can do the job of 20 of you, so you 20 are fired. Get out of here. And that's kind of what the hitchhiker is saying in that whole thing, in the middle of like trying to take a picture and sell them like for $5. But that, and the other thing the other big thing I was going to touch on is, and I always forget to look this up every time I watch this movie, the introduction where you're hearing all the news reports, and you hear news reports throughout the movie from time to time. It's the two things the news reports are covering are either some economic downturn or some random act of mass violence somewhere in the United States. And even in the world. Like you said, the whole world is sick even, and we're only now figuring it out and I'm guessing those are fictional news reports that Hooper put in on purpose. But I'm always curious, like maybe there's some truth to those news reports. But like I think those news reports and then that idea of like what the hitchhiker talks about with the gun are like the two key points as to the thesis of like what he's trying to say in this movie about America. And then you throw in like them being kind of like old hippies that are about to phase out of that, running into like basically hicksploitation that was kind of established in the 60s and still carried through in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah, it's telling too that the entire genesis of this story came from Toby Hooper being stuck in like a Sears department store during the holidays, and it's crowded, and him just being like, you know, goddamn these fucking people, just and looking over and just seeing a chainsaw and being like, what if I did something, you know? And that's
Retail
kind
will
of
do that to your brain.
Right. And that was kind of some of the genesis of this story, was him just kind of having that moment of self-reflection and beginning to kind of ruminate on violence in this country and how those things happen, and just the general like stress and anxiety of modern living in so many ways. But yeah, to Derek's point that, you know, that is certainly a contributor to this story, is just looking at the things that happen across this giant country on a day-to-day basis and knowing that what we're seeing in this movie is one instance with this one small group of people in this very small isolated part of Texas. and that's it. It's just one instance of everything going on.
Yeah, it feels like more so than other movies within the genre that are like based in real life. This one feels like it is lurking around like every corner in like all of our communities, no matter where you are. Like if you're in isolated Texas or if you're in like Los Angeles, California, it feels like something that could be happening right next door. But Aaron, you brought up something else that I think we need to talk about. I know we need to talk about it. Val, what do you think about Hooper making the chainsaw the most terrifying and iconic, horror weapon of all time?
I mean, it really was the beginning because I was thinking about this as I recently watched Evil Dead, all of those movies.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I don't think it would be a prominent piece in the Evil Dead movies if not for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then to go on from there, I mean, we talked a little bit about this before we started. Like Derek mentioned, like Chainsaw Man, which is an excellent anime
Yeah.
and manga. But it has become kind of a staple in the horror genre, and it started here and kind of with the presence that Tobe Hooper creates in this movie of kind of almost personifying it, that like you hear the sound and you know that it's going to go down, and it creates this sense of dread even when nothing happens, which the chainsaw is really not killing people for most of the movie, but you still kind of wince a little bit every time you hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just Franklin that gets killed by the chainsaw. He
Yeah, poor
cuts up other
Franklin.
people, but yeah.
Right. I think that's a lot of what makes a chainsaw a particularly scary thing is it's loud.
Mm-hmm.
There
Very,
are very few other murder weapons of note that have
You can hear it
an
coming.
audio quality to them.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, a gun makes a loud bang, but then a gun is also the kind of thing that you don't have the same visceral quality to it. A gun makes a loud noise and flash, and then you see the effect, but there's no connection. That's fundamentally the point of a ranged weapon. A chainsaw, you have to get up close. You have to be intimately up in somebody's face within the span of that blade for it to rip and tear into their flesh. And it's not like a knife either, where it just kind of silently goes in. It is like full blast screaming while this person is screaming. And it's not just slicing, it's grinding, it's shredding, it's just so
eating.
much more visceral. Right, exactly. It is this monster that is screaming and tearing you up and eating you, and that is so much more intense in my mind and in your mind as an audience member when you're watching this, because you've snagged your leg on a sharp fence before. You have accidentally scraped yourself with a cheese grater. You know, you've done things in real life where your brain
I never
can make
have.
those sensory connections. You've never grated
Oh,
cheese
it's-
before. You've
it
never like
sucks.
Grade the edge of your fingers. Ooh,
Yeah.
nicked at the
bad
tip of
feeling.
your finger, like slicing
Yeah, it
carrots or
sucks.
something. Yeah.
Not me. Nope.
Your brain makes these sensory connections, and your brain kind of puts those puzzle pieces together when you're watching something like this, and you wince because you can imagine that type of pain. And it's so much more visceral than being shot by a gun in a movie, because unless you've been shot by a gun, you can't project onto what that feels like. But you can with something like a chainsaw, because you've hurt yourself in similar ways, and so your mind can like extrapolate that out to a chainsaw degree. And it's so much more terrifying in that sense. That and just nothing else is shaped like a chainsaw. And it has such an iconic silhouette that just seeing the outline of a chainsaw, you know exactly what that is. And that's a lot of what makes it iconic. We talk about that with like movie characters in general. You see the silhouette of Darth Vader, you know it's Darth Vader. There's no denying that. You see the silhouette of a chainsaw, you know exactly what that is. And like Val was
Just
saying,
phallic enough.
right,
You get the
exact
job
that
done.
too. Again, especially in 2, we're gonna keep going back there. But to Val's point, like the chainsaw became this undeniable, ubiquitous thing going forward. A movie that I love, that it's a trash fun movie that we covered early on, is Pieces, which is a Spanish kind of rip off of Texas Chainsaw in some ways, but not in others. But the literal tagline of that movie is, "You don't have to go to Texas for a chainsaw massacre." You know,
Yeah.
like when other movies are
Yeah.
referencing specifically this one and calling that out as like a dividing line, that means something. Like that's important to culture when other things are calling out the better thing and saying like, we're not as good as this, but this is what we're going for.
Yeah.
To both Aaron and Val's points, Val, have you watched Chainsaw Man or have read the
I have
manga?
seen all of Chainsaw Man. Yes.
Okay, so like I'm right in that in the idea of that story, the demons that populate that world,
Mhm.
the stronger you are as a demon is because each demon represents a different concept of fear, and the more people fear the concept, the stronger the demon is, right? Is that like the general idea?
It's a little bit more complicated than that, but essentially, like you just to give a very short version of the plot in Chainsaw Man, typically people make pacts with demons,
Right.
and then in return, the demon's like, "You give me something." Usually, it's like a limb or something like that. It's a pretty dark anime, and then in return, I give you some power. I give you an ability.
Right.
And for the chainsaw, I mean, you see how he gets the ability in the first episode. It's pretty grisly.
I
Um,
just I talked about it with somebody briefly, and they brought up the idea that the reason why he like his demon, the chainsaw demon, is so powerful in that is because people are so afraid of a chainsaw,
Mhm.
like in the
Yeah.
horror sense, and so I think like something like Chainsaw Man, which is a Japanese created thing, even like across seas, this movie has had an impact. It's had an impact across genres and media. How many video game stuff out there involves a chainsaw? Doom, the original Doom, the melee
Mm,
weapon you get is a chainsaw, and you're ripping and tearing through demons and that. Like you said earlier, Val, Evil Dead. Um,
mm.
Yeah.
it's I think all of that owes the popularization, and maybe there was stuff before even Chainsaw Massacre that involved a chainsaw in a horrific way, but Chainsaw Massacre was the one that popularized it
This is the
to
one that we
such a
know.
to
Yeah.
such a global and historical level in pop culture that like you think of two things when you see a chainsaw. You either think of like some scene involving like a lumberjack, or you think of a horror movie, and like that's really it.
I always,
Sometimes
for,
both.
for some stupid reason, the movie I always think of after this for chainsaws is actually Motel Hell.
Hell yeah.
Because
Yeah.
towards the end of that movie, the good guy and the bad guy have a chainsaw battle with each
It,
other, where it's like now we get to have both sides have a chainsaw sort of thing.
hell yeah. It takes a lot of critters to make Farmer Vincent's
Farmer.
fritters.
Yeah, baby.
To what you guys are saying, the chainsaw has like all of the intimacy of a knife, but like the initial sound shock of a gun, but for such a prolonged period of time. And like when you are hearing the chainsaw, you know that the violence being inflicted on you or on those characters is as prolonged as like how long we're hearing the chainsaw.
Yeah.
Which brings me to something that Derek brought up like a while back that I wanted to circle back on. You said that this movie was smelly, and I think that this movie is in a lot of ways more so probably better than like any other movie that I can think of, at least at the moment. Really is an assault on all five senses. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that was part of why I felt so unpleasant watching this, is because sonically it's doing a lot to you. Obviously, visually it's doing a lot to you. But then the smells of the Texas sun and like the decaying bodies also somehow jumps off the screen and like into your living room or into the theater where you're watching it. So I'm just curious what you guys think about this movie in terms of like being something that is like fully fucking with you on every sensory level.
You can't eat
This-
during this movie.
Yeah,
No.
like they drive by the slaughterhouse and they're immediately like, "What's that smell?" And like you think they almost treat it like somebody in the van farted, but then like they start talking about the slaughterhouse and it's right there.
Which,
They walk
if
in.
you've ever driven past the slaughterhouse, that's correct. That's
Yep.
exactly what it
Yeah.
smells like for the mile or so around it in all directions. Yeah.
You see the literal sweat dripping off of them, like every character you meet. You see all the animal bones and feathers and those chickens everywhere, and you know that
Right.
smells awful.
You just
Like them-
imagine mildew,
Yeah.
old milk, sweat, like
Splinters.
musty crawl space, like that type of mushroomy mildew smell of your grandma's house. Like all of those things put together, gasoline, like that smell, because they have a generator going outside, like
All
that
the
smell
time,
is
yeah.
going to be pervasive. Shout out to Halloween Horror Nights, just something I love. My wife and I have been to a couple of times. We went one of the years that they were doing a Texas Chainsaw House, and if you've ever been to like a real deal legit haunted walkthrough kind of thing like what they have there, they go for all five senses. And so in all these different rooms, they're pumping in these like synthetic smells into certain areas of the maze.
Wow.
And the Texas Chainsaw one was incredible because you walk through a fake gas station area where they're pumping in gasoline, smoke smell, and then you go through the kitchen area where you're having like rot meat smells thrown at you, and it's overwhelming.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Gagging. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
gagging. I have to bring it up one last thing, and I'll let someone else have a turn. But like, I have to bring it up because Aaron, I finally found out like through doing our podcast, one thing he's actually afraid of. There's a scene in Texas Chainsaw where they walk into the room, they're hearing the chattering, and they look in the corner, and there's just a bunch of
Oh, right.
spiders. Like I just had to
Yeah,
bring that
no-
up because Aaron hates
I-
spiders.
Remember, because my husband also has the same fear as Aaron, and he wasn't expecting that scene, and he fully like head down, full fetal position in the theater. Was like, nope,
Oh
nope.
man,
Oh wow.
Yeah, no thanks.
that's a
Not a
bad
great
one.
scene.
It's another sign of everything's going. I mean, those spiders are going nuts. Nature is completely screwed in this world as well. So
Also, I mean, this is kind of secondary to all these other smells, but like honestly, I mean, I grew up in Missouri for a little bit in my childhood, but like this movie, I just picture this whole area smelling like cow manure because there's just too many farms around. I just picture this ambient smell. Like you've got the human flesh, you've got the nasty chicken feathers, and then just ambient cow manure everywhere you are in that area. Just terrible.
where I grew up in northern Maine, I grew up in a logging town actually. So I have chainsaw memories. But anyway, the town to the south of us actually had a rendering plant.
Oh yeah.
When I was growing up, and so driving by that, it was called Lincoln, and we called it Stinkin' Lincoln because you could smell it for like 20 miles away.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's what is in my mental olfactory senses as I watch this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
It's
Yeah,
all so brutal. It's
The South is full of areas like that. There was a chicken processing plant, one of the Sanderson Farms plants right outside of where we grew up, and every time you drove past that, awful smells. There was a paper mill kind of on the opposite side, and every time you drove past that, it smelled like tree farts. So yeah, just there is something about like having to spend all your time in that environment too, that you just kind of lose all sense of, exposure to that because you're so used to it.
Yeah, you don't even smell it anymore after a while, which is
Yeah.
clearly the situation with the Sawyer clan in,
Right.
in that house.
I mean, even real, like in the actual filming, Gunnar Hansen has said that like during the dinner scene, they shot for like 26 hours, something like
Yeah.
that straight. And they couldn't allow Gunnar to take his costume off the entire time because they weren't sure they could get it back on him. And so, and that's like, first of all, it's like 100, 105 degrees outside. It's the middle of summer in Texas anyway. And then they've got all these big lights. The film that they used is a pretty dense film stock, 16 millimeter, that required much more lighting than your average film stock. So they had huge, bright, hot lights. It was like 120 degrees in that room for 26 hours straight. He said there were people just going outside and vomiting and then coming back in to do the shoot. And I can't even imagine what those props, which were all made by hand from actual animal pieces by what's his name? I can't remember who did the actual special effects, but he made them out of animal parts, and they all started to rot. All the food started to rot. They lived through that, and I can't even imagine what happened to their noses during
and on top of that, her with all her screaming throughout like all those scenes, I think she blew out her voice as well. Like she lost her voice.
I wondered that
from just the prolonged screaming.
This is a perfect way to transition into the next thing that I wanted to ask you guys is just like what background you guys have about the production of this, because part of what makes this movie so unpleasant is that while you watch it, you're kind of thinking, this feels like a movie that shouldn't have been made. Like, it feels like everything that everyone is doing around this production is so unbelievably wrong and immoral. Like, none of this should be put to screen. Both like the actual content that we're watching within the movie, but also just like knowing what kind of hell they must have been going through behind the scenes. So like, yeah, Bob, I don't know if you have anything else beyond the insanely long shoots where wasn't there something where like they didn't like wash any of the costumes because they were like afraid that they wouldn't get the clothes back from like the laundromat or something, so people were just like wearing the same clothes for like 4 or 5 days at a time while they were shooting this. Also a nice appearance from your cat, but we love it.
Miles. Can you go? Are you good? All right. Excellent. She wanted to have her say about the thing. I don't have as many stories about production as I would usually have at this point. I wasn't able to do a bunch of deep dive other than, they spent a huge amount of time in that van too. Hot of the sun. And that was unpleasant for a lot of people, particularly Paul Partain, who played Franklin. And that poor guy had that one I had never really noticed before. They get that sausage from the cook, and you just, he's chewing on that forever, and there's human in that.
Yeah.
But he had to, that's like 2 days of shooting with that same piece of sausage stuck in his mouth. I can't even imagine what that must have tasted like at the end of the second day. But
hell yeah. We actually just saw him. Derek and I covered Race with the Devil recently. Great kind of road occult movie with Warren Oates and Peter Fonda, where they accidentally witness a cult murder in the middle of Texas and then are on the run. Paul Partain, it's the only other movie I've seen him in, I think. He's at the beginning at the racetrack where Peter Fonda's like running his motorcycle, and immediately I was just kind of like, oh, that's him. That's Franklin. As far as like production stuff goes, so one interesting thing, and this is common back in the day, but with movies like this that were very, very independent, you would kind of get your money from anywhere, everywhere. And there were obviously a lot of, hitting up your rich aunt and uncles and maxing out credit cards in the Kevin Smith manner. But there were a lot of opportunities for investment in film production and culture that were open to local business people. And there were lots of instances like Ed Wood where he would go and, hit up wealthy dentists and say, hey, would you like to invest in my motion picture film that I'm making? I'll make you a producer in it. And they're like, yeah, sure. What's this movie going to be about? Oh, nothing. Don't worry about that. Just making a movie. And so this was kind of the same situation where Tobe Hooper went to all kinds of people to look for the money to make this, including like a Texas Baptist Ministers Association, something like that. So there is some evangelical funding that went into this movie.
Oh, I bet they were thrilled when they saw the final product.
Right. Well, again, it was one of those things where it was just like, making this movie is about Texas. And they're just like, yeah, sure, sounds good, brother. Let's do it.
Hell yeah.
But
who's to say that this isn't an evangelical movie?
right,
You know?
exactly.
Yeah.
Again, going back to 2, Dennis Hopper is on the path of vengeance for the Lord in that movie. But another interesting bit is that one of the places that he got money from for this movie was the literal mafia, and he kind of got screwed out of a lot of the back end
Yeah.
money for this, and there were issues with the rights for years and trying to figure out who owned the actual production rights and the distribution rights and rights to the title itself and all of this. I mean, there was this giant mess because these guys that gave him the money just kind of absconded with all of the profits afterward. And, you know, he could have made a fairly good nut from this movie if he had been allowed to keep some of that money. Everybody on this movie could have done pretty well because it played for years on the drive-in circuits, especially. But Grindhouse theaters would continue to play this at midnight showings for years. I mean, it's always been in print somehow or another for home media. Like since the beginning of VHS and beta, laserdisc, like every format, Texas Chainsaw has been widely available, and tons of distributors have put it out there. So it's one of those unfortunate things where me as a Tobe Hooper fan, one thing that makes me sad is he was not alive at the point where people like really started coming back around to him. Right. And I don't think he ever realized how much he was really loved and appreciated and how much of an impact his movies have made. You know, I think and partly too because he just never was able to enjoy the success of the movies. You know, John Carpenter, like bless his cranky soul, has been around forever and has had lots of ups and downs in his career as well, and lots of things that flopped and lots of things where he didn't get paid a dime. But he's been able to at least like see the fan outpouring and see the impact of his work long term. I would argue the same for Wes Craven, you know, but a lot of these guys just didn't live to enjoy the appreciation, I would say. And I feel that way for Tobe Hooper especially, because this movie is like a 1000% iconic piece of American filmmaking. It changed not just the horror movie landscape, but movies in general. It is in the Library of Congress archives. You know, that's how important this movie is. And yet, you know, when it comes to Tobe Hooper, so much of the conversation still just revolves around, well, did he direct Poltergeist or not? Wah, wah, wah. Oh, his later stuff is not really good. Wah, wah, wah. You know, you make Texas Chainsaw, done. You can never make a movie again, and you're set in my mind.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
That's the kind of thing that like I wish that he had been able to enjoy, you know, the love that has come around in the last several years, especially, but you know, just to kind of see the impact that his work had. You know, I wish that he had been able to enjoy some of that a little bit more ultimately.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree. Uh, this is going back a little ways, but two things that you said reminded me of stories. One of the people that they went to for money that ended up helping them out was a cosmetic surgeon who, for the first and only time in his life, made special makeup effects. He's the guy that actually did Grandpa's makeup.
Right. Yeah.
You know, he was just basically a local, cosmetic surgeon guy, and he contributed his time as his way of contributing money. And that Kim Henkel actually tells a story about going to New York and going to the offices of the mafia associated production company and insisting that they see the books, and they're like, nah.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, if you don't, we're going to sue you. And the guy sat back with the two Goombas next to him and goes, you ain't got the balls. And he said he was right. So I went back to Texas and sued him. So.
That's amazing. Val, Derek, I don't know if you guys had anything about the production or how it at least like reads to you, even if you don't have like any background about how this was made, but just like if any of that like came through in just the viewing experience.
Yeah, I mean, I am certainly not well versed on the production. I mean, yeah, I did definitely think, like, listening to Marilyn Hunt scream for, 30 minutes straight, I was like, this poor woman is not well. Like, I mean, in my tiny bit of experience, I did take vocal pedagogy in college. That screws up your muscles big time.
Wow.
She was probably not okay for a
Yeah.
long time after doing this, like, probably needed some kind of medical treatment. I would probably venture to guess, but I mean, it's an incredible performance.
The whole introduction, like where it's treating it as true events. Again, I don't know if this was the first movie to ever really do that, but I feel like it's the movie that popularized that as well. Because this was, like you guys had said, it was shot in 73, released in 74. There's no internet. No one's going to be able to figure out,
Right.
oh, was there some kind of true event? And and like any good conspiracy theory or movie theory or anything, there is a nugget of truth with the he gathered pieces of a lot of true crime stories, but Ed Gein being the biggest one.
Yeah.
So you do have that nugget of truth in there to really propel that forward. And I don't know if that was Hooper's call specifically or the screenwriter or whoever, but it was a brilliant move. So not only do you have like Leatherface being a horror icon up there with Freddy and Michael, not only do you have the chainsaw becoming a horror icon as a weapon, you also have this movie popularizing the idea of like based off true events.
Yeah.
And whether or not that actually is true or not, who cares? It adds to
Yeah.
the horror of what this movie's doing.
Yeah.
And then the other production thing, because Aaron, like basically everything I know is what Aaron knows, and Aaron covered a lot of that already. Was again like Hooper writing this with the intention of also being satirical and a dark comedy. And one more scene, because Bob brought up the cosmetic surgeon doing Grandpa. Another scene that I will fully admit made me laugh out loud this watch around, probably says a lot to me, is when he's sucking on her finger and sucking the blood out, and he does the little dance. That little dance he does got me pretty good this time.
Yeah.
I remember
pretty
when I
good.
actually, this is unrelated, but when we saw that in theaters, my my husband leaned over to me and went, "Oh, Grandpa's alive." Up until that point, you do kind of like, if you haven't seen it before,
Yeah.
he looks like a corpse that they're wheeling
Yeah,
around, but he
yeah.
was like, "Oh, he's
But that,
alive."
like,
He's alive.
at the same time, it's humorous. Like the first time you watch and that happens, it's like, wait a second, that's not a
Yeah.
corpse. Like, because you saw Grandma, and Grandma was like almost a full blown
Yeah.
Oh,
skeleton
yeah.
at
Yeah.
that point. Oh, that
I
was
just
it.
you'd mentioned Marilyn Burns, and screaming. One of the other things about the movie was they shot it kind of in order.
Yeah.
So that last scene with her in the truck is the last scene that they shot. And they shot that scene with her screaming her head off again. And so much so that she kind of blew out her voice. And then she went home and took off the clothes. Like, I'm never going to have to wear this crap again. Took a shower. It's like, I'm done. And she woke up the next morning to a phone call from the producer saying, we didn't get it.
No.
No.
We need to do it again. So they had to go back and do it. And it's one of the reasons why she's laughing, which I think is iconic, because it's
yeah, so good.
Great.
You know, it's like, okay, this woman's never going to escape this. She's physically escaped this, but
her laughing, him doing the chainsaw dance, like, it's perfect.
It's iconic.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
good.
And Marilyn Burns didn't have to fake that, you know.
Yeah,
she
she's
was
like, I'm
going
finally
through
done with this shit.
Yeah.
Which MVP shout out, I have to say this every time like I watch this movie. MVP of the movie is that trucker who like rescues her and then throws a freaking
Throws a
tool,
wrench. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
right, like direct hit right into his face. Like,
I'm
perfect.
gonna say it. Only black character in the movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Saves
The
the day.
hero
Where
of
does
the
he
film,
go?
arguably.
Where does he
Oh,
go?
he
He just
runs.
starts booking it.
That's what
But
we do,
like-
man. We save the day and then we dip. That's it. I did have the brief thought while watching this, maybe not so brief, that this is a horror situation that only white people would find themselves in. If you have 5
True.
black kids who are driving across the country, the second one of them sees that house, everyone's leaving. We're
Yeah.
packing up and we're going home. There's no way that we're exploring that house and allowing ourselves to come face to face with Leatherface. Derek, one thing that you spoke about with the like that opening like text before the movie actually starts, I think kind of goes hand in hand with like some of how this movie's shot, where it's really blurring the lines between reality and the fictional nature of this story, where you're like, okay, this is like maybe based on a real story and like they're kind of shooting it documentary style, but like obviously this has to be made up because like all of this is so absurd, but at the same time this feels like something that could be happening in my own backyard. What the hell is going on? And again, to circle back to something that I've been saying this whole time, I think for me that just like plays into all of the unease that I was feeling the entire time watching this movie, is that, you know, that blurring of reality and fiction and
Yeah.
everything that's going on with it.
Aaron described it really well earlier when he called it as kind of like a borderline snuff film. Like, should I actually be watching this?
yeah.
Definitely.
And it is like, and I know it has its fans. I do not like the remake from 2003 at all. And part of the reasons why I don't like the remake is I feel like the way that movie opens versus the way this movie opens like completely misses the point of the original, when it's like showing the police going into the basement and they're getting attacked by Leatherface and the footage cutting out. I get that they're trying to go for the same thing, like, is this based off of true events? Here's some real footage from the real crime scene, and they're trying to do it in like a modern way. But but then you go immediately into like a well shot, like very clean looking movie, whereas this movie has that opening crawl, and then like you said, it feels like a borderline amateur documentary. And I think like the amateur nature of the way it's shot lends really well to like the unsettling horror of the entire thing. And I watched this on Tubi. It's currently on Tubi for free. I think they have the new like 4K restoration because it looks
Really.
so good even on Tubi.
Yeah. Along all these lines, y'all have all kind of mentioned bits and pieces of it, but I'll shout it out here. Dan Pearl's cinematography in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's great.
Every
Like,
scene looks so good.
It is capturing all of the grossness that we've talked about and all of just the sensory overload, but there is something about Leatherface dancing with the chainsaw at the sunrise at the end that is just undeniably gorgeous.
Yeah.
And when we saw it recently, the scene that's, you know, the showy moment where the camera goes underneath the swing and follows Pam into the house, that was one of those moments that I kind of wanted to just golf clap a little
Yeah.
bit, but
I-
I was afraid
I was
people were going to
about
think
to-
I was being a little bit pervy looking at Pam's butt. But
I was actually
Um,
going to bring that shot up as like one of the best shots of any movie I've ever seen. Of
Yeah.
just
yeah,
Yes.
it's
like
wild.
up from the ground looking.
And a last
'Cause you
minute
see the
shot,
sky
last
and
minute
everything.
decision.
Yeah,
You know, they made it up
Wow.
Yeah.
that day while he was thinking about it. So yeah.
Oh, and,
Yeah.
and that adds even more to the unrelenting like horror throughout this, because as she's walking up to the house, it's a beautiful day out. Like
Yeah.
the sky is blue, and it looks gorgeous, and then you're about to enter this nightmare.
Yeah. And the
It's
house
terrifying.
just keeps getting bigger until it overwhelms the scene. Yeah.
I'm getting chills from you guys just talking about it, and I don't know if it's because it's terrifying or if it's because that's one of those shots where you watch and you're like, oh, this is why we love movies. Like
Mhm.
movies
Makes
are
it look
awesome because they
easy,
can
yeah.
do this. Someone can have a camera just like track someone underneath a swing set, and it can be the most gorgeously haunting thing I've ever witnessed.
Yeah.
Movies are rad. um, Also, you guys spoke a lot about the ending, which I don't fully want to get there yet. I did want to ask one other quick question about sort of like the blurring of lines that's happening here, where this is in many ways kind of like an exploitation film, but it's made with like this artistry that it then kind of becomes an art house movie. But because it's so fucked up, it's hard to think of it as an art house movie. But like we're talking about how amazing the cinematography is. We spoke about the context that this movie is made within and all that it has to say about American culture and society at the time. Like it does have elements of both of those. How do you guys think that this movie is balancing both of those things at the same time?
It's one of those films that we were talking when we did American Werewolf in London, how there's like no subtext, almost no
Yeah.
subtext. It's just a kind of a straight monster movie.
Mhm.
And this is a movie, you know, I wish I could remember the guy that talked about there's in when a creator makes a piece, or when multiple creators make a piece, in some in everything there's always a gap between what the creator intends and what the audience experiences, and the gap is where the audience fills in those feelings and questions and the subtext and stuff. And uh, a good creator leaves enough of a gap between what they intended and what the audience puts in there to fill that with all kinds of things. And I feel like Toby Hooper and Kim Henkel, who co-wrote it, really left a lot of space for us to
Yeah.
kind of find lots of ways of of experiencing and understanding this film. So I guess that's all I have to say.
Yeah.
about
I mean, there's a world where someone can talk about Leatherface as like an expression of like a trans experience or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Like, which
Yeah.
probably wasn't the intended purpose, but because this movie is operating on so many levels, like we can, come away with that with that reading.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the balance between art house and then like exploitation, that's Toby Hooper in a nutshell. Because you watch any of his movies, heck, Aaron and I just covered a movie that like a lot of people overlook of his, called The Mangler, which is literally about a haunted printing,
Yes.
like a haunted laundry press, and it's based off a Stephen King short story.
Of course
And you
it
go
is.
into it thinking like, how are you going to make this a movie? And not only does he make it a movie, he makes it a social commentary on capitalism yet again. um and I think that's Toby Hooper, like that's his magic. Is another filmmaker could have made the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it's literally just kids wander through the house, get picked off one by one, cut up in chainsaw. That's the movie. Where it
Lots of other
transcends.
filmmakers did do that, and that
Yeah.
is all the movie was. So I mean, we
Yeah.
we have the examples of like when this doesn't work. We don't even have
Yeah.
to talk in hypotheticals. Like we have tons of titles where that's exactly the case, and
Hmm.
there's just
But-
not the same spark.
But then with what makes it like into that realm of like also art house, also deserves to be like in the Library of Congress, this important piece of media, are the subtleties he puts in, like the news reports in the beginning again, like the talk that the hitchhiker has with them in the van about the slaughterhouse, the idea that these are all hippies, the idea that this is in Texas, the idea that the setting of this is happening with the backdrop of an economic collapse and people have lost their jobs and yada yada yada. And like when you're watching it and even after the fact, that might not seem like much, but those are the things that make it transcend. That this movie, it on one hand, it is a great horror movie about a guy and a skin mask cutting up like kids with a chainsaw, but on the other hand, there's a lot of social commentary there, and you
Yeah.
can you can analyze this movie. You can watch this movie 100 times and find new things to analyze.
Yeah.
There's also just a ton of craft that goes into making a movie like this because he's creating an entire world. Like, he has created this town, he has created this house and the surroundings of the house. He has created these characters that all have very distinct looks and personalities. He has created this entire like audioscape in this movie too. We haven't really talked about the music in air quotes. But it's very oral. It's just a lot of cacophony and noise that's kind of driving the audioscape of this movie. Um, like that in and of itself is so much more interesting and thoughtful than just putting another psycho rant, rant, rant kind of score over this thing. Um, the, all of the thought that goes into that kind of stuff, the production design of the house and all the interior and all the props, like Bob was talking about earlier, like all of that stuff requires a lot of thought, a lot of planning, a lot of creativity, a lot of people working to put this thing together. And that's it takes effort to do that. You know, it's a miracle that any movie gets made, period. But when they actually turn out good, you know, that's always worth applauding. And that's kind of the difference here is, you know, exploitation stuff often is just trying to get to the cheapest, fastest, most, you know, low common denominator answer to everything. And this movie doesn't take those shortcuts. And I think that's a lot of what sets it apart from everything else.
Yeah.
Val, did you have anything else?
No, I was just agreeing with all that.
I love it. Guys, this has been such an amazing conversation. We're gonna get to recommendations soon, but before we finish up our convo about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, we talked about it a little bit, but I think we need to dedicate some time to the ending of this movie because it is one of the most remarkable endings that you will ever see in any movie. It's one of those things that will have you float out of the theater after you see it. This gives us the first example of the final girl. I was thinking while all of you guys were talking about the exploitation versus art house thing, like this is a movie that exists in a really like academic sense. Like there have been like entire papers and books written about this movie, and you're like, why is that the case for a movie about a dude who puts on a mask of someone else's skin and cuts up kids with a chainsaw? That doesn't make any sense. But whatever. So Sally becomes our first example of the final girl. We get that insane shot of her covered in her face, covered in her own blood, crying and then laughing manically as she has escaped this horrific experience. And then the final shot is Leatherface doing this like weird ballet with his chainsaw, with the sunrise as the backdrop. And Bob, I'm pretty sure in your review you described it as being oddly poetic.
Well, yeah, it's weirdly beautiful. You know, as Aaron said earlier, it's shot incredibly well. It's a dance. You know, it's a weirdo dance, but it is a dance. And you know, I don't know about anybody else, but I actually felt for Leatherface in this movie, and it all goes
Yeah.
back to that moment, you know, where after he's killed the third teenager that's come into his house, he has almost a mental breakdown in his own living room where he's like, where the hell are these kids coming from? What is going
Yeah.
on?
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And so for Leatherface, that's the worst day he's ever had, you know,
Yeah.
and he's just kind of flipping out at the end and having his own existential breakdown, just like Sally Hardesty is having in the back of that truck. They're both losing it. So yeah, it was beautiful, but it was weirdly beautiful.
Well,
Yeah.
I never thought about it that way. That's a really good point, because also right before all that, look what happens to his brother. Like, he sees what
Right?
happens to his
Oh
brother in that,
yeah.
and you know, that's got to be like a mental breakdown as well, on top of everything else that's happening.
Yeah, I think also something that I felt the first time I watched the movie is like you sort of share in her sort of breakdown relief in that like she's finally out. We, the viewers, are also finally out of that house and it's daytime and the sun is coming up. But you feel kind of a sense of like a hint of reprieve because like right before that, I mean, you have like the scene over the bucket, which feels like it goes on forever. Like it really does, at least to me. So when she finally gets out, you're almost like, oh, like I can breathe normally again as the
Yeah.
viewer finally getting to this ending.
And it's always shocking when she like escapes the second time and crashes through the window, and it's daytime. Like, because the
Yeah,
passage of time, it's almost timeless. You have no idea how long she was actually in the house, and
yeah,
just that was a brilliant touch to the final chase scene being like it's morning time, it's dawn. Like, here we go.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking to what Ref mentioned earlier about like this movie being written about in an academic sense and dissected. I mean, one of the most famous books about not just horror movies, but like movies, period,
Yeah.
is Carol Clover's Men, Women, and Chainsaws. And that's a lot of, kind of what this movie is looking at the end, especially in terms of the formation of the final girl trope. This wasn't necessarily the first instance of that, but it was before we codified that and like knew what that looked like and turned it into a trope and were recycling it and making a point of like including that in horror. And Sally's a good example of it because she is at a place where she is experiencing every type of fear of men that you can possibly experience, from the standpoint of, am I about to be sexually assaulted? Do they just want me to be the new mommy? Do they, are they just bullying me because I am, not as strong as them? Like, there's just all those different layers of violence that women experience day to day. And all of that is kind of rolled into this ultimate ball of breakdown that she experiences at the end, and there is just such a relief that she gets away. And that's one of the things I appreciate about the ending of this as well too. And a lot of the same conversation I remember happening with Get Out when it came out,
yeah,
that there is something so much more cathartic about the character actually getting away, instead of there being the final gotcha moment where, mutant Jason pops out of the lake and grabs you out of the canoe, or to go back to Carrie that Derek and I just covered, the hand pops out of the, rocks at the end to grab you. Um, there's something so much more fulfilling and cathartic, and like, as an audience, you all kind of have that rush at the end because she gets away, because she escapes that violence and she overcomes it. And that is incredibly satisfying as an ending. As abrupt as it is, that I think is what makes this ending work. Because if this did end with like the truck pulling to a stop, her getting out to go to a payphone and call the police or whatever, and then the chainsaw coming through it, like it's some
Yeah.
stupid thing like that, that would have deflated so much of this movie's power. But to end it on that note of just complete screaming loud full blast mania is perfect, absolutely perfect.
It's amazing. I have watched the alternate ending of Get Out, and it doesn't work at all. Like,
Right,
Yeah.
it
right.
fully does not work.
Well,
But so we have this moment, and then to like connect it to what Bob was saying, where also throughout the movie we are like kind of meant to sympathize with Leatherface. So like we have this moment of reprieve with her, but then it ends with him, and we still kind of feel that same good feeling. And like in a weird way, he is like also becoming free of like the things that led him to the unfortunate situation that he was in. And there is like a weird connection between the two of them as characters. Val, I don't know if that's what you were going to say, but I think I cut you off.
no, you didn't. No, I was agreeing with you about Get Out.
Yeah. It's
Still one of the best lines when he steps out of the car.
He's like, I'm
yeah.
About the
TS, you
TSA.
motherfucking A.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I love that line so much.
But I mean, they both work for like similar reasons, right? Like where it feels like everything that has led up to that moment, um, because the movie has been so unrelenting towards this character, we don't fully trust that they're going to get out of it. And
Yeah.
when we finally realize that they will, the like weight off of our chests is just, it feels so better. It makes you want to laugh in the most maniacal way possible because
Yeah.
you didn't think that you would get there, but here we are. And then we do a little dance in the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To your point, Raph, the connection between Leatherface and Sally is interesting because there is some slight trauma bonding going on between them, because throughout the entire movie, Leatherface is picked on and bullied and abused by the other members of this family, in air quotes. And, you know, he is kind of the dullard brother, that there's obviously more going on there, medically, mentally, whatever. But they give him a hard time, and he is the butt of every joke, and they are giving him shit about anything, everything that happens. And so he and Sally do kind of have a little bit of that weird connection where he doesn't fully, you know, go through with it when he probably could have, and kills her. And to him, it's more fun to just, you know, let her go and whatever. And I'm just going to enjoy my time out here where I'm not getting beat up by my brother. I'm not getting yelled at by my father, uncle, brother. I've never been clear on what the Cook's connection is here in the family. But just him being able to like have that moment of cutting loose and feeling free is like also kind of weirdly inversely cathartic in the way that Sally is also getting away from all this craziness. So there is something to be said about that connection, and that's certainly interesting. I like that you brought that up. That's cool.
Yeah, it's weird. There's like, he's in a way a victim to the same kind of system that she is. And
Right.
like we spoke about it a little bit, but like he's dressed in drag. There is some queerness to the character. He's kind of like the fill-in mom, matriarch, like of the family unit that they end up having within that house. So like there is also that connection between the two characters, which then like kind of in a weird messed up way like also makes him a final girl. Like there's a lot of weird stuff happening in this movie. But if we're not reading into all that, we can just like look at that shot and be like, oh, that is a beautiful cinematic way to end this insanely weird, fucked up movie that we all just experienced.
Yeah.
Guys, I feel like we maybe didn't cover everything, but we covered a lot. This has been such an amazing conversation. Thank you all for joining. I don't know if anyone has anything else that they want to bring up that we maybe didn't touch on. And if not, we can jump into some recommendations for this bad boy if y'all are ready for it. Yes,
I got one thing
Bob's
just
list of
because
factoids.
well, no, not necessarily factoids, but like Gunnar Hansen after this movie, he didn't act in another movie for like 10 years. This wasn't what he wanted to do. He wanted to be a writer, and so he moved to Maine, which is where this is my home state. It's where I live now. And became a documentary filmmaker and nonfiction writer, and he wrote a bunch of screenplays as well before he went back to Hollywood. But turns out that my sister-in-law actually has a autograph from him when he came to visit her sixth grade classroom, because he'd done a documentary about a Maine island. But she was like, "You were in a movie, weren't you?" He's like, "Yes." He's like looking around at the classroom. They're 6 years old. Not 6 years old. They're in sixth grade. They're on a Matinicus Island, which has like a single room schoolhouse sort of thing. So there's like 8 other kids in the whole school, and made him say what the movie was. Yeah, I was in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. She's like, "Give me your autograph." So she has an autograph from Gunnar
That's
Hansen.
awesome.
Yeah,
That's
it's
so
hilarious.
That's amazing.
Random.
That's a good, we love talking about celeb spotting, so that is a good celebrity encounter for sure. Well, sweet. Shall we jump into our recos?
Sounds good.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So you guys all know the deal. Listeners, y'all know the deal. We're recommending 3 things to check out. If you like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, at least one of those 3 things has to be another movie. The other 2 things can be any and everything else. It could be more movies. It could be a book, comic book series, a TV show, an episode of TV, an album, a painting, a museum, a video game, whatever you like. The connections can be as loose or on the nose as we like. And we can only recommend 3 things, 3 and only 3, and no movies that are already in the canon. So unfortunately, no Poltergeist. For the order, let's go Aaron, Derek, Val, Bob, Raph. So you can either give what it is that you're recommending and then an explanation of why you're recommending it, or explain what it is that you're going to be recommending and then give us the title. So Aaron, whenever you are ready, give us your first shout.
Let me think. I'm trying to come up with 3 because I did not prep any recommendations. So the first one I'll mention just off the top of my head is one that I will continue to bring up because I don't think it gets enough love, and we have had him on our show before, but comic author Cullen Bunn wrote a series that I have a lot of love for called Harrow County.
Yes, I almost added this as one of my recommendations.
Yeah, it is. In terms of like, where it kind of connects to Texas Chainsaw, it is set in a rural southern town. It is about a girl who slowly discovers that she is the reincarnation of a witch that was burned generations prior, and she is coming to terms with that legacy and the fact that she is kind of doomed to inherit that power and that reputation, and she inherently does not want that. She doesn't want to be evil. She doesn't want to be persecuted by the town. She doesn't want to be ostracized, and in the meantime, she's making friends with all the monsters and haints in the woods. And, what if your best friends were a skinless boy that crawls around in the trees like Gollum, and a young black girl who is also kind of on the ostracized part of town who is learning voodoo from her grandmother, and then a giant minotaur demon kind of thing, right? Like, it's a lot of learning to embrace your otherness and accept yourself, and find your place and find your people and find where you fit in. And the entire thing is gorgeous. The Tyler Crook artwork in it's incredible. It's very watercolor, melancholic, beautiful. But the best thing about the series is it's like 40 something issues and you're out and it's done. And, it's not like a lingering thing. It didn't get canceled early or anything like that, but it's an incredibly good story. It was put out through Dark Horse Comics. And you can, find all of it very easily through a variety of sources, whether it's digital or in physical print. But that series means a lot to me, and I love it to death. Harrow County by Cullen Bunn.
Second,
Movie.
I second that recommendation and not just because we've had him on our show. He's one of the best horror comic writers out there today.
Yeah,
But
for
you only
sure.
do one at a time, and then we pass
Yeah,
on.
we're gonna rotate.
Okay,
We're gonna do one
cool.
at a time, and then
Perfect.
I just wanted to say I like Colin Bunn as a writer quite a bit as well. One of the things that I like him for is he did a comic book called The Empty Man,
Yes.
which was the
Yes.
basis of one of my favorite undersung horror movies of the last decade. So
That comic is
yeah,
also
good call.
underrated as well,
Very
as far as horror comics go.
Nice.
Cool.
Sweet.
Yeah. So my turn. I will, because I have two movies, but I also have like my off the wall recommendation. I'll start off with my off the wall recommendation. I kind of went back and
Nice.
forth on a few things. I was like, do I go pro wrestling and talk about like the history of the Wyatt family? Because like Texas Chainsaw had a big influence on the Wyatt family. Like, do I do something like that? I decided to keep it simple because I am a gamer and I'm a big horror video game person. I'm going to go to the Resident Evil franchise of video games.
Hell
I'll start
yeah.
off, like, I'll table set before I get into what I'm actually recommending. When Resident Evil 4 came out, it's considered a masterpiece, like capital M masterpiece video game of horror video games. And one of the reasons why is one of the most memorable villains in the franchise history is this villain called Dr. Salvador, who's one of the infected village members that wields a chainsaw. And when he shows up, he's like nearly unkillable. He can kill you in one hit because if he hits you, he beheads you immediately with the chainsaw. He looks kind of like the Spanish version of Leatherface because he has like a potato burlap sack over his head that like is his mask, and like he's wearing like messed up farming clothes and overalls that are bloody and everything. And like it's terrifying because the opening moments of that, you get attacked by the whole village who's infected, and then about 5 minutes into that relentless attack, here comes Dr. Salvador with the chainsaw. And like we talked about how auditorial that's extremely unsettling, you hear him getting closer and closer just by the sound of his chainsaw. So
That
but
seems so brutal.
yeah, but my actual recommendation, sticking with this franchise, is Resident Evil 7 Biohazard,
Yeah.
because it is like the 1-to-1 from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre to what they did with Resident Evil 7. It's 1-to-1 because instead of it being a Texas family, it's set in the swamps of Louisiana, but it is just like, what if Texas Chainsaw Massacre was made into a survival horror game? And yes, I know there have been Texas Chainsaw Massacre video games, but I felt like this is more of a Texas Chainsaw Massacre than those are. You play as this character named Ethan Winters, who is searching for his long missing wife, who he thought was dead, and then suddenly like he gets a voicemail from her and he goes looking for her, and it leads him to the swamps of Louisiana and to this like derelict plantation mansion type place. Shout out to Katie O'Hagan. Katie O'Hagan is the actress who portrays his wife in this game. She's been on our show a few times as a guest, so got to shout her out. But as you're investigating and looking for your wife, you get abducted by this family, and they torture you in the beginning of the game. You break free, you start like running around the house trying to escape, as each like family member is starting to stalk you, and you run into like other stuff. And because it's a Resident Evil game, it ties into like bioweapons and then like biological infection. But the family in the game is just the Sawyer clan, and each one is like a different like the initial person who stalks you is the patriarch of the family, and it is the most Texas Chainsaw stuff because like you start off with the only thing you have is a knife and you have to run away from him. And the reason why like where it really holds its Texas Chainsaw influence and wears it on its chest is like you're going through this mansion, and it is just like you're going through the Sawyer clan's house. Like there's trash bags everywhere and nothing's been cleaned. There's rotting food and flesh everywhere. Like this black fungi, which is kind of part of the infection in the game, is dripping and gooping everywhere. There have been people that have been going missing in the area, so you're seeing like body parts like from time to time throughout the house. It's a nightmare. And then the first big boss fight you have in the game is with the patriarch, and it's a chainsaw duel. Like he attacks you with a chainsaw, you grab a chainsaw and you start fighting him with chainsaws,
Hell
and
yeah.
and they do it in like the slaughterhouse room, so you're like among hanging slabs of meat. And that whole sequence, you cannot tell me they didn't watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and like we're like, this is what we're gonna do for our video game. And like even after you get past him and you like encounter the mother seems like the long lost cousin of the Sawyer clan, and then you have like the son
Meth
who's
brother. Yeah.
yeah, the meth brother who's like he basically is the hitchhiker from Texas Chainsaw, but like if the hitchhiker was a little smarter and more like Jigsaw from Saw.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like Resident Evil 5 and 6 I thought were like misfires in the franchise, and it was starting to like lose its luster. And Resident Evil 7 like reinvented the whole franchise again with how good it is.
Yeah. I'm
It made Resident Evil scary again.
I'm not a big gamer at all. We've talked about this on the show before, but this was the first Resident Evil game I played, and it really did knock my socks off. I am definitely somebody that gravitates more toward games that are very story driven, very cinematic, more than like this is a game. And so it worked for me completely. But yeah, I would also, as somebody who is not a gamer, I would recommend if you have access, play this. It is a great experience.
Hell yeah. I love it. That sounds amazing. I'm not a gamer, so I have not played this. Val, Bob, I don't know if you guys
I have
have played
not.
this
It is
one.
on my wish list. I know that this game gets insanely cheap every Steam sale, so
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's been out
yeah,
for a while. Yep.
yeah, I think it's like $7 now, so definitely worth checking out.
Awesome.
All
I
right,
love that.
I think I'm next, or was it Bob?
It's
Trying to
you,
remember.
Val.
Okay. Mine is a movie. I actually found myself thinking of these two movies, kind of seeing them around the same time, in the way that they are both social commentary horror, both kind of dealing with like Vietnam, that kind of response to that time period, and the way that this movie made me feel, because it was, while certainly I wouldn't say that this movie is as good as Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it made me feel like when I get moment of peace, like it's just sort of unrelenting in its energy. And I'm going to recommend 2025, very recent movie, the adaptation of Stephen King's The Long Walk by Francis Lawrence.
Yeah,
And
that was
Nice.
fun.
this movie, like if you've read The Long Walk and you thought to yourself, well, surely they're not going to put that part on screen.
Right.
I've got some bad news for you, because that movie, there were parts where I was like, oh my God, like like there are scenes that are just disgusting in this
on the way
movie.
on the way home, my wife was like, "Why didn't you tell me there was going to be so much shit in this
There's a
movie?"
ton of shit in that movie. Like Jeff was
Another
having
stinky
a
movie.
yes, my husband was having a horrible time watching this movie. So I would highly recommend it, especially if you're a fan of the book. It does change the ending, but just in the nature of being kind of an unrelenting horror, also being set kind of in the rural Northeast in this case, starting in Maine and going down to Massachusetts. But boy, you really feel like you're on the long walk watching the movie. Mark Hamill's also just in his weird old guy era, having time
Yeah.
of life in that movie.
I love it. You also wrote a review, right, for the website?
I did, yeah. Good opportunity to plug. It was actually Ramona was going to review it, and she very graciously handed it off to me because I was also going to go see it. So, yeah, I do have a review if you want to read
A
that.
nice little double recommendation. Go
Yeah,
see it and then read Val's review.
go read my review.
Very nice. Bob?
So my recommendations are going to start relatively adjacent and then go further afield as usual. In this case, I'm going to start off with a movie. It's not really specifically related to Texas Chainsaw Massacre in a direct way, but there was specifically a scene in this movie, and I loved the entire movie, but there was a scene in that movie that made me feel as as if things were as uncomfortably real feeling as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre felt to me the first time that I watched this. It's got all, and it's also a movie that uses horror in a way to make a commentary about our modern society. So they've got that in common. They're both directors who do this sort of thing. I'm just going to go right on and say that it's George Romero's Dawn of the Dead.
Nice.
Specifically, there's a scene relatively early on where the SWAT team is clearing out an apartment building that has a bunch of zombies in it. And when they get to the basement, that's where all the people who live in the apartment building have kind of been keeping their undead relatives because they can't bring themselves to kill them. And when they go into that chain linked in area where it's just a bunch of zombies kind of chomping on, it's just felt like I was watching something I should not be watching. Like this looked like a documentary about some horrible thing that had happened in New York City in 1978 or whenever. And it always felt kind of dangerous to me in a way that the rest of the film doesn't quite feel. It's a little more humorous than that particular moment feels to me. But I love that movie. It's a fantastic.
Yeah, is Dawn not
film.
in the canon?
I don't think so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm Night of the Living Dead though is right.
Yeah.
Has to be.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Just double checking.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that aren't in the canon that you might go like.
Yeah, Dawn.
Not a single Tom Cruise movie.
That is correct.
You had to bring up a sore subject for me, Val. My boy, we're missing TC. Where is Tom Cruise? Great recommendations. I love it. I feel like my first recommendation isn't as thoughtful as everyone else's. Although, Bob, I got to say, I always love when you bring props. That's my favorite part of every episode. I don't have any props for my first one. I'm going to kind of like stay in the South for my recommendations. The first thing I'm recommending is also about horrors and terror that exists within our communities that feels like it's lurking right around the corner, but it is also in the shadows in ways that once it's revealed feels like super apparent and also extremely icky and unpleasant, and you don't want to be around it, but it does feel. This particular piece of text that I'm recommending probably doesn't feel as real as the horror and terror within the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But definitely something while I was watching this, I realized like, oh yeah, season 1 of True Detective is pulling from this movie a lot.
Yeah.
And it's about that like weird underbelly of people who have been left behind by society. And Aaron, like you were saying, they're kind of bored and they just kind of turn to violence in awful ways. But yeah, I thought that show was definitely pulling from this a lot. Yeah. So it's my first recommendation.
The level of boredom and dedication to that boredom you have to build Carcosa, that's like staggering. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Carcosa is what would happen if the Sawyer clan was like just left untouched and got away with it for like decades.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. An unfortunate next evolution of the Sawyer family.
Right.
Now we're doing yard art. Yeah. Cool. So my second recommend, and I'm fairly certain if we're talking larger cinema, then yeah, this is probably not going to be in the canon. But like Texas Chainsaw, this has a crazy weirdo family. This has stuck in a crazy, awful house. This has cannibalism. This has crazy weapons. This has very interesting, like, socioeconomic themes and, like, greater looks at American culture and society. This is
Cars
also a
too.
movie. Correct. Yes, it is all about how the car with the mustache that goes le beep beep because it's like a Italian car. Anyway, that's a weird thing that so many kids movie sequels end up just becoming like a spy adventure. Anyway, tangent. This is also directed by one of the like masters of horror TM. I am talking about The People Under the Stairs, directed
Oh,
by Wes
yes.
Craven.
So good.
So very, very
good.
similar vibes to Texas Chainsaw. This is one that I watched a lot growing up. This was talked about at my school just as often as Freddy and Jason and everything else. Like, the people under the stairs are going to get you.
It has them from Twin Peaks, and it's Big Ed in a gimp suit, like dancing like
Yeah.
he's part of the Sawyer clan. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's
Big Ed
awesome.
is running around in a gimp suit, blasting a shotgun. This has the kid from The Sandlot in it, so that was also like a thing for me growing up because I love that movie. Ving Rhames is awesome in this. But this has a lot going on under the surface as well, because the one thing that all of the, again, Masters of Horror, Mount Rushmore guys kind of have in common is what we've been saying this whole time. They always weave in interesting socioeconomic, sociopolitical, like there's always stuff going on under the surface. There's always some kind of commentary happening under the surface. And this is also a look at like what happens when, you know, isolation kicks in and people that are kind of purposely locking themselves off from their greater community instead of, you know, actively trying to be part of that community and participate, and shunning themselves from everybody else. There's also the angle of like keeping a family insular and the ways that that goes sideways and weird. But yeah, it's a crazy batshit fucking movie. It also has the thing that Derek and I love, which is like a rap song about the plot of the movie over the credits. That's something that needs to come back 1,000%. But
The
this
last
movie
time we
is
had that was Mission Impossible 3.
Wait, really?
right.
Gotta bring it around a cruise again.
Right. But yeah, this movie is super fun. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of like character actors that you've seen in a million things. There is the same kind of manic, trapped in the house of craziness energy going on here, but transposed to Los Angeles instead of rural Texas. So it's kind of the inverse in some ways of Texas Chainsaw, but a lot of the same bits and pieces of things. So yeah, that's one that I have always liked and would definitely recommend to anybody that has not checked that out. If Wes Craven is a blind spot, or if that movie in particular is a blind spot, absolutely go watch it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Great.
Nice. I have a kind of off the beaten path slasher movie from 1979 as my next recommendation. Part of the reason why I am recommending this and tying it back to Texas Chainsaw. Two reasons, actually. One, some of the thematic elements, specifically the idea of being in a rural area in a road trip, and you just stop in some secluded place that seems abandoned. There's something slightly off about it, and you don't realize you've just walked into a nightmare. That's a big theme in this movie. And then the other big thing is there is a one-to-one from this movie to Texas Chainsaw, and that the production designer Robert A. Burns, who worked on Texas Chainsaw, also worked on this movie. He also worked on The Hills Have Eyes. I am recommending 1979's supernatural slasher film Tourist Trap, directed by David Schomler. I can't pronounce it. It starts off very similarly to Texas Chainsaw. It is a group of kids, kind of. This is before the 80s. It's at the end of the 70s. They're kind of hippie-ish. They are traveling in different vehicles. Two of them are ahead. They stop at what appears to be an abandoned gas station. Something happens that's unexplainable. They go missing, and their friends are looking for them and wind up going to a nearby tourist trap that's run by this weird old guy, and it's full of mannequins and everything else. And you will not guess where this movie is going, like from where you started to where it ends. Because while Texas Chainsaw like leans into the grit realness, this movie starts in the same area, and even like set dressing looks very similar, like run down empty spaces and stuff falling apart. but this becomes way more surreal than that. And funny enough, and
Sure
this was
does.
something we didn't really touch on, and I kind of forgot to bring it up when we were talking about Texas Chainsaw. Texas Chainsaw is surprisingly bloodless for a movie that's called Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's not
Yeah.
very bloody.
Right.
This movie makes up for that. This one is more of the bloody version of that. I mean, it's nothing like outrageous. It's your standard fare like slasher gore, but like it's just amazing that because when you watch this movie, it feels like an 80s like throw on the pile like Halloween or Friday the 13th clone. You start off like that, but by the end you're like, this is something I've never seen before, and I never had any idea where it was going. And oh yeah, it was shot in like 1978 79, well before Friday the 13th came out and like really perpetrated like the slasher clone like era basically. So I recommend it. It is a strange movie. It is underrated in my opinion. And yeah, it shares a lot of similarities, especially visually and set dressing wise, to Texas Chainsaw.
That's a
Hell
great
yeah.
look too. I think this is one of Kane, one of the founders of the website that we write for, is one of his favorite movies. So
Like because I watched it because one of the things I'm doing like for our show, because we also do recommendations, especially now that I have 2 kids, it's so much easier for me to just like watch movies. Like I try and throw in video game recommendations and comics and stuff from time to time, but and Tubi is such a blessing because I can watch so much like obscure horror on Tubi. And this was one of those movies I was like, this look like I see this on a lot of underrated lists. This looks like trash. I watch it and I'm like, whoa, this movie has a lot more going on than I thought it did.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right, my second recommendation is actually a video game. This video game draws a lot of inspiration from like 80s slasher, probably most notably Friday the 13th. But definitely some inspiration, very clear inspiration from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I know Aaron has played this game. I don't know if Derek has. But I'm recommending Supermassive's The Quarry, which is a
Yeah.
game that got a lot of hate online, unfairly in my opinion, because like I really think you would only hate this game if you hate having fun. Like, is it derivative? It's not an amazing story, no, but like it's fun. It's really fun, and I will give a tip to those who maybe will go check it out and have not played it before. There is a point where you will have to make a choice as one of the characters between a shotgun and a chainsaw as your weapon. You do want to pick the chainsaw, and that is
Yeah.
all I will say.
Noted.
Yeah. That
Nice.
game is a lot of fun, and that's another that my wife and I have played with you, Val, specifically. We've played these
Mm.
types of games, but I like the stuff that is put out by Supermassive. They've also made like the Dark Pictures anthology, right? Aren't those
Yeah,
related?
most well known is Until Dawn is probably
Right.
their most well known game, but they come out with a new one every year or so, and they're pretty
Yeah.
solid most of the time.
And they're short. That's the other
Mhm.
nice thing, and they have a lot of replayability. Me, again, as a non-gamer, it is fun to sit and like kind of couch co-op, hand the remote back and forth and play a game like that where it is all about, playing through the story and there's no skill involved. You really just have to press buttons and make decisions.
Yeah. Sometimes
And
your characters all die, and
right,
try
which
again.
is part of the replayability, especially with Until Dawn. You can just replay the game multiple times, and there's always a different ending, and it's 8 hours, so you can play through it in like a weekend and restart it. And there's different characters, so you can trade out. It's a good time. I will also endorse those games. I don't understand the hate for them either. The Quarry was a lot of fun. So yeah, I will back you up on that one for sure.
Nice. It's on in my queue actually. So.
Yeah, isn't Ted Raimi in that one too?
I
Yes.
think so, yeah.
Yeah. I love that they always get like character actors from horror in
Yeah,
them
they
too.
actually, the most recent one had Jesse Buckley in it, so they're clearly like
Wow.
getting
Yeah.
some
Nice.
big name actors.
Nice. Okay, my second recommendation. I've shuffled things around a little bit. I've decided to go with a game as well, but I'm going with a board game.
Oh.
Nice.
I
Hell
have
yeah.
a number of horror board games downstairs, but this is a more recent purchase. It's also a solo board game, which is relatively rare to get. Although my wife and I play this, helping each other out, playing this as a single
Okay.
player. It's a horror based board game that has multiple expansions that each have individual movies as themes. So there are the first one, the one that I have, is a slasher, more in the line of like a Jason sort of movie, but there are ones based on Alien, based on The Thing, based on Nightmare on Elm Street. This is Final Girl
Okay.
Nice.
from Van Ryder
That's
Games.
cool.
One of the things that I love about this is the game board is actually part of the box. It's magnetic, so you open up different parts of the box to set out the game board. All the pieces are in there. And it recreates the experience of having that particular horror movie. In this one, there's a camp with campers that you have to help save. There's a big killer who wanders around trying to kill you and the campers. It's pretty intense and exciting for a board game, and you can play one easily in 20 to 30 minutes. And there are a ton of expansions for this thing too.
Yeah,
So
I'm
Hell
highly
yeah.
looking up
recommend it.
right now. It looks so cool.
Yeah.
Great
The one
recommendation.
drawback about it is that the base core box of the game is required to play all the expansions, and it does not come with any playable expansion. You have to buy something to go with it. So there are sometimes, occasionally, they'll do double ups where they give you, like this one is the Happy Trails horror. That got bundled with this one. But if you happen to see just the core box, don't just buy that because you won't be able to play the whole game.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Cool.
I know
Yeah.
about those single player ones because I have like the Batman, like one
I
of the
saw that
Batman
back there.
tabletop, and like Legendary, which is like a Marvel deck building
Yep.
game.
You
And
got
I
the
actually even
Shining
have,
back there too. Yeah.
yeah, I have The Shining. I even have like down there, like Resident Evil, same thing. You can play. You can either do single player or like up to 4 or 5 players, and that
Nice.
one. But yeah, they're starting to make a lot of tabletop games where you can play solo, and it's actually pretty fun.
That's sweet.
Nice.
That's awesome. We got more props too.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Always a fan of that. Awesome. All right, I'm gonna keep my second recommendation really short because it's really dumb. But I'm gonna recommend, this is gonna be my one movie. It's also a movie about teens in Texas who they experience some stuff that's not so fun. But instead of encountering someone wielding a chainsaw, they're playing football. I'm recommending Varsity Blues.
All
Still not
righty.
so fun stuff.
I don't know why, but while I was watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I kept thinking of the line in Varsity Blues where Dawson says, "I don't want your life." I don't know why that kept popping into my head. I was picturing like him being one of the kids in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So yeah, there you go.
Ironic that we're like Aaron and I are doing this because like our October theme thing is season of Spoop, and this year we're doing high school horror movies. And the first movie, because we just did Carrie, the first movie we did was The Faculty. And during our Faculty episode, I kept thinking for whatever reason, the coach who's kind of the bad guy in Varsity Blues was also played by Robert Patrick. But then when I went back and looked up, I was like, no, even better, it's played by John Voight.
It's
And then
John
I thought
Voight,
about
yeah.
Anaconda and
Oh
like
my
in that
god.
movie. So like there are a
Yeah.
million
Yeah.
ways to die on the river or whatever he says in Anaconda.
Oh my god, that fucking movie.
Yeah, so like it's funny you bring up Varsity
Uh,
Blues because that was on my brain pretty recently too because of The
That's
Faculty.
funny.
Everyone's always thinking about Varsity Blues. That's how it goes. It's one of those movies. Awesome. All right, last round. What do we got, folks?
All right.
I've been sitting here trying to think of like something else that kind of ties into Texas Chainsaw, and a movie that I really enjoyed from a couple of years ago. and this is specifically just kind of connecting in my head because of cannibalism. Julia Ducournau's Raw from
Oh, I was
2016.
also
So
thinking about
good.
this movie.
Nice.
Yeah.
That movie rocks. That movie has an incredibly visceral quality to it that I'm so curious to see her next movie. Like, she is a filmmaker that I am in line for everything that she puts out. I love Titan. I'm very curious to see like what she's doing next. But Raw specifically has so much to do with Texas Chainsaw from the standpoint of like being young, figuring out who and where you are, and just trying to figure out some kind of direction. And this girl being pulled into veterinary school kind of because it's just what her sister's doing, and discovering this kind of weird, feral, unhinged side of herself. And I won't really go much further than that in terms of explaining plot or where this movie goes. I've already mentioned cannibalism, and that's maybe a little bit much. But there are some insanely visceral things in this movie. Going back to Texas Chainsaw and just how your brain can make sense of what you're seeing in a way that you can relate to, and your brain can process the like intensity of what you're looking at. The performances are great. Believe the actress's name is Garance Marillier. She's fan fucking tastic in that movie. Rabbits, private schools, veterinary school seems simultaneously like a blast and also awful.
French people. Yeah.
Right, exactly, that too. But yeah, like that movie's nuts. That's one of the more fun off the beaten path things that I had seen in a while, and I heard so much buzz about it, had to check it out immediately, and I'm just right off the bat, I was like, okay, anything that she puts out from this point on, I'm game for. So yeah,
Yeah.
Raw from 2016, directed by Julia Ducournau.
I have to be very honest about that movie. I listened to y'all's episode about
Yeah.
Raw. I have not seen Raw. I am afraid to watch Raw. I'm just
Oh,
afraid it's
I
going to
think
be the kind of horror that I can't do.
You
I
should
And
think
watch
you
it.
would like it, and if you can
okay,
handle Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you can
okay,
absolutely handle Raw. It's
okay,
not nearly as bad, but
all
like
right.
another tie to Texas Chainsaw, weird dark humor moments that probably aren't necessarily intended to be humorous. Let's just say it involves licking a finger like a lollipop, and I remember Aaron and I both cracking up talking about that scene, and
Oh,
like just the way it's framed and the way the score comes in as it starts happening, like it made me laugh out loud.
dang.
My final recommendation is probably the one that's least tied thematically to Texas Chainsaw, but I found a way to make it like fit. So I mentioned earlier how obviously Texas Chainsaw is a better movie, but like I have more fun and will watch Texas Chainsaw 2 more often. And Aaron's going to roll my eyes at this recommendation because I will take every single opportunity I can to promote this movie because it's like one of my favorites of all time. As much as I love and recognize that the original Halloween is an undeniable masterpiece, I'm recommending Halloween 3 Season of the Witch from
Yes, my
1982.
brother. Yes,
I don't roll my eyes
love
because
that
that's one
movie.
of my all-time favorites as well too.
Yeah.
As we have discussed on the show many times. So no,
Yeah,
I don't roll my eyes at all.
I thought you'd roll your eyes because I just bring it up every single time I possibly can, and I'm wearing a T-shirt.
Oh
and I
sure,
have it on
sure.
yeah. But it is directed by and written by Tommy Lee Wallace, who worked on the first Halloween with John Carpenter. It's produced by Deborah Hill and John Carpenter. It stars my boy Tom Atkins, who like gets laid so many times in the 80s in horror
Yeah.
movies. Like how? But sure, whatever. Sex icon Tom Atkins. Stacey Nelkin. And I love what this movie does. And like a lot of people are, like throw out the argument like it would be a much better movie if it wasn't called Halloween 3. I understand that argument. I counter that argument where I love that this is in the franchise because A, it's the original vision of John Carpenter. He wanted it to be an anthology franchise.
Yeah.
That honors that. B, it shows that this movie has no Michael Myers in it except for like on the TV showing an actual like rendition of Halloween, the original one. but it shows that you can make a good Halloween horror movie without Michael Myers. And this is a hot take, and maybe some of your listeners might come after me for this. Our own listeners would come after me for this. I think Halloween 3 Season of the Witch is better than every single Michael Myers sequel, reboot, remake of the Halloween franchise. Like, the only other movie that is better than Halloween 3 in the franchise is the original. But I love that it goes in a sci-fi horror route. I argue that this movie has more to do with Halloween than any of the other Halloween movies, because the actual plot involves Halloween masks and something happening on Halloween night.
Right. Like the
specifically.
actual holiday and tradition of Halloween is a major part of the plot
It's explored
in a way that is like not at all a thing in the rest of the series. Yeah.
Yeah, and just I even argue that Connell Cochran is a more sinister, diabolical, horrible villain than Michael Myers ever could be, because Michael Myers doesn't go after children, and Colin Cochran wants to like genocide children by the end of this movie. So like I love this movie. It's goofy, but it's also extremely serious. The practical effects are great. I love the blend of science fiction still with supernatural elements and witchcraft. I like the departure from the slasher genre. As much as I do love like Halloween 4 and the 2018 Halloween, and I'm even an apologist for the Rob Zombie Halloweens. I think this one is my favorite in the franchise besides the original. So yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm right there
I'm
with you. It's my favorite of the Halloween series. I do think Halloween's a better movie, but Halloween 3 is just more fun. And I'm a big Nigel Neal fan, and I know he disavows his work on this film, but it feels like a Nigel Neal movie.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, like, even as far as cinematography go, it's such a well shot movie because Dean Cundy's also working on it, and Dean Cundy did all this stuff with Carpenter. So, even if like you hate the fact that it like gets rid of Michael Myers, like it's still a well made, good horror movie.
Yeah. R.I.P. to the factory. My wife and I were on vacation in that part of California, and completely coincidentally, she realized, like, oh, we're 15 minutes down the road from the town where they shot Halloween 3. And I was like, what? So, yeah, we went there
and go to Silver Shamrock right now.
Took pictures at Silver Shamrock and the hotel and everything else. And, yeah, that is not there anymore. So,
dang.
Yep.
Happy Halloween. Like, the commercial's iconic. The voice over that I think is Tommy Lee Wallace doing the voiceover.
Gather round, kids. It's almost time for the big giveaway. Yeah, that movie rocks, man. It's so good.
I haven't seen it. I'm kind of I hear it's like pretty terrifying.
It's scary, but like, again, if you can handle Texas Chainsaw, you can absolutely handle Halloween 3.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if I can handle Texas Chainsaw. That's the problem.
But it's scary, but not in ways you're expecting. I'll say that. And
I have been meaning to check it out for a while. So maybe this Halloween season, maybe now's the time.
It's a perfect movie for Halloween.
Yeah.
Like,
right. It literally culminates on Halloween night, so it is a great watch for actual Halloween itself. It's bananas. There is a huge like WTF factor to the entire thing that's a lot of fun to watch with a group. And it's just there's a lot of good iconography in it that you're starting to see pop up more and more on merch, on toys, t-shirts. Like, it's coming back around. People are really starting to like rediscover that one in a good way. So definitely check it out.
My boy Tom Atkins, at the height of his power, is playing a doctor named Dr. Chalice, who like is implied to be hooking up with like 3 different women in this movie at some point.
Hell
is like, he's at the same time like part Han Solo, but then part like deadbeat alcoholic dad. And it's just,
also a doctor, like an actual doctor, right?
Yeah, like the perfect flawed character. Like he's
find the time.
He's a dirt. He's yeah. He's a dirtbag, but he's like a dirtbag you can kind of root for too at the same time.
Yeah, we met him at Nightmare Weekend last year. We also met Tommy Lee Wallace last year. Both of them are super nice, but my wife was finally like, okay, after meeting Tom Atkins in person, like, I kind of get it. Uh-huh. We're not crazy.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. I love it. Sweet.
All right. Last rec from me. This is not a very good tie-in at all. But frankly, I just watched this movie and I wanted to talk about it. But I mean, it is kind of still set in kind of rural America, and that is a big part of its horror and what it's doing. So I guess it's tied in that way. Also has very, very few but very effective jump scares. And I actually recently saw the AMC advanced screening of Chris Stuckman's Shelby Oaks. Now,
Ah.
I am seeing very mixed reviews come out of this movie, and they make me feel crazy because I thought this movie was excellent. And particularly, this is his first ever film. I understand that Mike Flanagan was the producer on this movie, but this is not a Mike Flanagan movie. It is much more direct. It is all show, no tell. There is not a lot of talking in this movie. There's a lot um just on the acting and the setting that's kind of making everything feel very um sinister and dark and empty. It is set in Dark County, Ohio, which is obviously just a moniker for Stark County, Ohio, where I used to live by. And it is very interesting how the setting kind of serves as an additional character in this movie. Um, I'm going to write up a review, so plug for that. It'll probably come out
Nice.
sometime this week. And yeah, go check it out if you can. I mean, it's a small filmmaker. He Kickstarter funded this movie. He's actually a YouTuber and does film reviews most of the time. So love to support that. And yeah, go see it if you
Sweet.
can. It's a
Awesome.
You
good
gotta love
movie.
when the name of the place also matches it being like a sinister area, like Silent
Yeah.
Hill. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, because Shelby Oaks is the name of the town, not any of the characters in the movie.
the Dark County, like that. There's a
Dark
Cthulhu,
County.
like waiting to be
Yeah.
summoned in that area, in like an old farmhouse.
That's so. I never had the thought that Shelby Oaks could have been the name of a character, but yeah, that's great as something that could be the name of the place or the name of a person.
Yeah.
It's a fun game, which we won't be playing anymore now, but something to think about. Awesome, and we will definitely be on the lookout for that review, which may or may not be out by the time that this is released.
Right.
Who's to say?
Right. Okay, my final review is actually the only relation that it has to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, honestly, is that it's mentioned in it a couple of times. I just wanted, it was the end of spooky season, so I wanted to kind of recommend something that really started me on my horror journey in earnest when I was a young reader. This is a book that kind of gave me a start in horror movie theory in particular, but movie theater theory generally, also just lists of great horror movies, great horror books, great horror television that I could follow up on. Some of the films have been on my holy grail list for decades. I finally got to see the last one, probably early 2000s. I finally saw David Cronenberg's Shivers, which was known in the book as They Came From Within.
Yeah.
It's Stephen King's Dance Macabre. It came out in 1981.
Okay.
Here's the
More props.
hardcover
That's
version.
a nice copy. Dang.
And this is the one that, of course, that I have had since I was young.
I actually prefer that retro cover. Like that's awesome.
Yeah,
I love the simple covers like that.
Yeah, these this particular one is edited to fix a bunch of errors from the hardcover version. So I think that was recently republished with a new introduction, but it is from 1981. It was before the internet. It was before any real conglomeration of pop culture that I could access. So for a long time, it was my Bible for accessing and understanding horror in a lot of different pop culture contexts. So it's still a fun read. It's easily accessible to the non technical or educational minded, and it's one of my favorite books about horror as a genre.
Amazing.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
That's incredible. I don't know how I'm gonna follow that up. That was like a deeply personal recommendation. And my final recommendation is somehow even dumber than my second recommendation. But we joked about it on the front end, that we wouldn't have time to talk about chili in this
oh my God.
episode. And
Oh,
I was
no.
thinking, right, because I wanted to stick to the South with all my recommendations, and I realized that there aren't any good Texas style barbecue places in New York. There's a couple good Kansas City style
Sure.
barbecue places, but that wouldn't feel right. We were talking about, now that it's October, we've all started, making our chili batches. I've, already made a couple, but I haven't specifically tried a Texas style chili. So I think for my recommendation, I don't have a recipe in front of me specifically, but I'm going to recommend that we all go out and try to make our own Texas style chilies.
Hell yeah. I'll do it.
All right.
Who else is signing on? Who else is on board? Come on.
I'll post a
Look, I'm
picture
down.
in
Yeah.
the comments to just
Yeah.
prove that I did it.
We all
Mine's gonna be pretty basic because my kids are gonna be like on my legs as I'm trying to cook it. But so I'll just do like I'm a Cormix or something. But yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
the beautiful
awesome.
thing about chili is you just throw a bunch of stuff into your slow cooker and you let it sit for 8 hours, and
Yeah.
then it tastes delicious.
There
So
you go.
Oh, yeah.
um,
Like chili's was not a big thing in New Orleans, but Frito pies were, and so that like, by
That's got
default,
chili
like,
in it.
it got chili
Yeah.
in it.
Chili in it.
Look, my wife and I cook a lot. I got a lot of recipes, so this will be fun. Yeah.
Nice. I actually am going up north. My little brother got a moose permit in Maine, so I'm going on a moose hunt. I don't hunt myself, but it's an opportunity to go with my little brother, who's 18 years younger than I am. We didn't spend a lot of time together when we were young, so this is going to be but I'll make some chili because we each have to bring a meal for one of the days up there. So
I thought you were
Yes.
going to say that you were going to make moose chili, and
That's what I was about to say.
I would if anybody had gotten a moose in the last 5 years, but whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck it, I'll try
Yeah,
some
and
moose chili.
it's isolated northern Maine country in November too. It's going to be spooky as hell up there.
Hell yeah, I love that. Well, this has been so amazing. Thank all of you for joining. This has been so much fun. Recommendations were great. The conversation about Texas Chainsaw Massacre was absolutely incredible. Could not think of a better way for us to spend our 100th episode of the Canon and to wrap up this particular spooky season. Before we get out of here, we mentioned on the front end, but Derek and Aaron are joining us from the Watch If You Dare podcast. We spoke a little bit about it before, but where can folks find you if they want more of your beautiful insights about this great genre?
So we are available on every podcatcher. We are not exclusive to any platform. We've been ad-free from the beginning. All that is thanks to our patrons on patreon.com/watchifyoudare. But overall, yeah, we are on Blue Sky. That's going to be the best place to find us. We are still active on Facebook a little bit because there are still people that engage with us there and people that we talk to kind of only on there that don't have other social media. Twitter is very much a like we post, hey, we put out a new episode. That's kind of it. So that's Blue Sky is the best place to find us. Period. That's just Watch If You Dare on Blue Sky.
And I'll direct everyone to our main website because it has all the links to everything, like to our social media, to all the podcast platforms. It's watchifyoudare.podbean.com. We're on
Yep.
Podbean, and if you just type in Google "Watch If You Dare" podcast, we should be popping up as like the top result. So, yeah.
Yeah. The main show is focused on movies. We do one title every episode. It comes out every other week because we both are busy and have lives and jobs and kids and whatnot. We also have a Patreon where we talk about all the other stuff. So we focus on like TV or just deep dives into franchises or commentary tracks, interviews. We have all kinds of stuff on there. So,
Sometimes we do something off the wall. Like one of my favorite Patreons we recorded is we did a whole thing on horrorcore hip hop.
Yeah.
And the history of horrorcore. So
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
There's fun stuff on there. So yeah, and we are in the middle of our season of Spoop, where we typically will pick like one topic for October and do all of our movies for that month based around that. But we really try to make it a mix of different titles, every genre, every type of theme, every era of filmmaking, and kind of have like a good spread of stuff there. And we have a lot of great guests on, whether it's like friends and family or industry people. We have a good smattering of people that have been on our episodes over the years that have been a lot of fun. Val has been on, as we mentioned. Hopefully we can get you two guys on there eventually. So yeah, definitely it's a good time. And we would appreciate if anybody gave our show a listen because we have a lot of fun doing it. And I don't know. I feel like it's pretty chill for the most part, but we get a little bit off in the weeds deep sometimes, so it's
not family
fun.
friendly though. We are pretty crude on our show, so like FYI going in, the tone is a little more like juvenile. I would say.
We'll throw some fuck words around occasionally and get off in the weeds, but otherwise,
as you should. I mean, the horror genre is not family friendly as a whole, so why should the show? Yeah,
right.
But we
Right.
we do try and like offer the in-depth analysis so like you guys did on this episode for everything we cover, even if it's something like ridiculous. Again, like the Mangler, like we found a way to blow that up into a whole episode. So, yeah, and thank you again. This was an honor for y'all to include us on your 100th episode.
Yeah, big
awesome.
thanks for inviting us. We had a great time, and would love to come back on for any other thing that you would have us on for. So, this was a lot of fun.
Hell yeah, we appreciate you guys joining. It's been great. Definitely go check out the show, listeners. It's a very good listen, very fun time. Bob, Val, any final anything else that you want to shout out that you have coming up on the website to round out October on Scream Age Wasteland?
I feel like we've been pumping the same things, but we're getting towards the end now. The only new things I can think of, my brother Jeff is actually doing something for the website. He's writing up a top 10 scariest characters from Star Wars.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and not monsters. He's saving that for next year. It's just characters. And then Duke and Sailor and I are doing that. The next horror movies based on DC Comics characters that we want to see, and that should be out Monday or Tuesday, I think. So, and that was Julia DeCorneau is actually one of the directors that I picked for one of the characters.
Yeah,
in that list because she is so good. Yeah.
Are you a fan of the Swamp Thing, like the movie?
Huge fan. Yeah, absolutely,
like,
absolutely. I almost recommended.
That to this day, that's still like one of the only sort of successful like superhero horror adaptations.
Hey, you're leaving off Constantine, which I've been pitching all year because it's an anniversary year and we haven't gotten around to it. But that movie's fun.
That's fair.
That movie's great. Yeah, that's a great.
Yeah, that is a very good movie, but it is very, very different from the like.
Hell yeah,
the Hellraiser or Hellblazer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, like what Bob was saying, it's going to be a repeat from things I've mentioned before, but I can't remember if I mentioned it on The Witch or not, but I got the opportunity to review the screener for The Ritual House, directed by Crystal Huang. It was, there were things I liked about it. There were things I did not like about it. You'll have to read my review. And I'll be reviewing Shelby Oaks very shortly. Another one that's coming out tomorrow on Netflix that I will be reviewing is House of Dynamite. So keep an eye out for that. I am going in with mixed. Aaron will know this. If you see movie posters for something on the Metro in DC, it's usually a bad sign for that movie.
Yeah.
So when I started to see posters for it there, I was like, oh no. But hey, it's got pretty decent reviews, so I will go in with an
Yeah.
open mind and we'll see what happens.
I've heard mostly good things about it, and look, at Bigelow, I'm here. Let's go. So
Yeah.
Nice. Good stuff all around. Yeah, as we come to the end of Spooktober, we'll be winding down Scream Age Wasteland and kind of just getting back to all of the normal stuff that we have going on there, which is always still fun, but not quite as fun as what we have in the month of October for Scream Age Wasteland. I don't have much coming up in terms of reviews or anything that I'm writing. Jacob is picking back up pole position, so there will be the written form of that, as well as some video pods up on the YouTube page. So if you want to stay up on what's happening in award season, you can check that out. I know Val is going to be joining for some of those.
I
Bob
am. And
might
Ramona will
be.
be too. So best actress discussion, we will pass the Bechdel test. It's gonna be
Nice.
fun.
Nice.
Love to hear it. But yeah, that's really all that I can think of. We will obviously continue to be coming at you fast and furious with the new episodes of the Canon as we continue to round out season 6. We're going through November into December, so got a few more episodes coming up. We will be back next week talking M with Jason and Paul from Cold War Cinema. So very much so looking forward to that. Screenagers, as always, we hope to see you there. And in the meantime, we'll catch all of you lovely folks in the wasteland. Bye, everyone.
Bye.